What if demonic influence wasn't just spiritual, but hereditary, passed down through bloodlines? PAIMON, a powerful king of hell, may hold the terrifying answer. His influence could be closer than you think. Today, we will delve into the enigmatic figure of PAIMON, the ninth king of hell, a prominent entity in demonology and grimoire traditions. PAIMON is often depicted as a master of all sciences, possessing knowledge of hidden secrets and commanding legions of spirits, making him a formidable figure in the infernal hierarchy. What truly sets PAIMON apart, however, is his unique association with hereditary influence, a terrifying connection that suggests his power can be passed down through generations, with implications that are as shocking as they are profound. In this video, we will uncover the hidden history and the true extent of PAIMON's power, exploring the specific rituals used to invoke him and the entities he commands. We will also foreshadow the shocking revelations about alleged bloodlines connected to PAIMON and the potential consequences for those who are believed to carry his mark. By the end of this exploration, you will understand the terrifying rise of PAIMON, his significant role within the demonic hierarchy, and the horrifying implications of his hereditary demonic influence. What does it truly mean to inherit a connection to such a powerful and potentially malevolent force? The traditional understanding of PAIMON paints him as simply a powerful demon, a king in the infernal court. However, this perspective remains woefully incomplete. This video aims to explore the horrifying implications of his hereditary influence, its potential impact on individuals and families, and the dark legacy that could be unknowingly inherited. Is PAIMON merely a demon to be feared, or something far more insidious and deeply rooted in the very fabric of certain bloodlines? Now, the idea of hereditary demonic influence might seem far-fetched or even superstitious to some. However, the human fascination with power, lineage, and the darker aspects of human nature is a recurring theme throughout history. Cultures across the globe have explored the idea of inherited curses and blessings, with many believing that certain traits, destinies, or even spiritual connections can be passed down through families. Is this belief in hereditary demonic influence simply another lens through which to examine these age-old concepts, or is there something more sinister at play? Let's begin our descent into the terrifying world of PAIMON and explore the truth behind his hereditary demonic influence. To truly understand the terrifying nature of PAIMON, we must first delve into his foundations within classical demonology, particularly as presented in the Ars Goetia, a key component of the Lesser Key of Solomon and other grimoires such as the Pseudomonarchia Daemonum. This exploration will reveal the core characteristics that define PAIMON's power and position within the intricate demonic hierarchy. Understanding these often overlooked roots is crucial for grasping the later, far more unsettling aspects of his alleged hereditary influence, a connection that whispers of inherited darkness. To appreciate PAIMON's place, we must first consider the grimoires themselves. Historically, these texts trace their origins back to ancient magical and religious traditions, blending elements of Hermeticism, Jewish Kabbalah, and Greco-Roman paganism. Key figures, both legendary and historical, are associated with their creation or transmission. King Solomon, the biblical monarch renowned for his wisdom and purported control over spirits, looms large in the grimoire tradition, though his direct authorship is certainly mythical. More historically grounded figures like Johannes Trithemius, a 15th-century German Benedictine abbot and cryptographer, contributed significantly to the development and dissemination of occult knowledge that would later inform these texts. The purpose of grimoires extends beyond mere spell books. They function as comprehensive manuals for summoning and controlling spirits, detailing elaborate rituals, incantations, and sigils designed to bind these entities to the will of the practitioner. Grimoires, therefore, represent a synthesis of diverse cultural and religious influences, reflecting the syncretic nature of demonology itself. Is it any wonder they are repositories of both profound wisdom and terrifying power? Within these grimoires, PAIMON is meticulously defined. Based on his descriptions in the Ars Goetia and related texts, he is unequivocally a king of hell, a high-ranking demon possessing immense power and authority. His appearance is striking and unusual. He is depicted as a man with a crowned head, often riding a dromedary or camel, and frequently accompanied by a host of spirits playing trumpets, cymbals, and other musical instruments. His presence is announced by a cacophony of sound, a fanfare that underscores his regal status. PAIMON's powers are vast and multifaceted. He possesses mastery of all arts and sciences, both natural and occult, granting him the ability to reveal hidden knowledge and unlock profound secrets. He commands legions of spirits, deploying them to fulfill his will and execute his commands. What makes PAIMON particularly unique within the infernal hierarchy is his specific association with science and knowledge. Unlike some demons who embody brute force or destructive impulses, PAIMON is a font of information, capable of answering questions about all things, secret and manifest, past, present, and future. Specific passages from the Ars Goetia vividly describe PAIMON's attributes and the proper methods for summoning him. The text states that he appears in the form of a man sitting upon a dromedary with a crown most glorious upon his head, emphasizing his regal bearing. It further details that he is perfect in all arts and sciences and other secret things, highlighting his unparalleled knowledge. The Goetia also outlines the precise rituals required to invoke PAIMON, including the necessary preparations, offerings, and precautions to avoid danger. These rituals often involve the drawing of specific sigils, the recitation of incantations, and the creation of a consecrated space to contain the demon's power. Examples of the types of knowledge PAIMON can reveal include the secrets of the earth, the nature of the mind, the location of buried treasure, and the hidden connections between seemingly disparate events. Visual descriptions of PAIMON from historical illustrations in grimoires offer further insight, though variations exist across different texts. Some depict him with more human features, while others emphasize his connection to the animal kingdom, highlighting the multifaceted nature of this powerful entity. Analyzing these descriptions, the significance of PAIMON's association with science and knowledge becomes strikingly apparent. He represents a dangerous or forbidden form of enlightenment, a path to understanding that lies outside the bounds of conventional wisdom and established authority. His appearance and attributes can be interpreted as symbolic representations of his power and authority, drawing connections to ancient Near Eastern deities associated with wisdom, kingship, and the desert. The crowned head signifies his regal status, while the dromedary connects him to the harsh landscapes and hidden knowledge of the ancient world. The implications of his control over legions of spirits are profound, suggesting that he represents a powerful force that can be used for both good and evil, depending on the intentions and capabilities of the summoner. Could PAIMON's power be a reflection of humanity's own potential for both creation and destruction? Furthermore, PAIMON's attributes link back to the overall theme of hereditary influence, subtly suggesting that his knowledge and power may be passed down through specific bloodlines, a terrifying prospect we will examine in greater detail. While understanding PAIMON's role in grimoire tradition is vitally important, it merely sets the stage to ask a far more troubling question. What about PAIMON's alleged unique relationship with specific bloodlines and families? How does this hereditary influence manifest, and what are the potential consequences, both intended and unintended, for those connected to it? We will soon delve into unsettling accounts of families who claim to be, or are believed to be, descendants of PAIMON. Prepare yourself, because what they reveal is far darker than the well-trodden demonic lore. Of course, a counterargument must be addressed. It is possible that PAIMON is simply a symbolic representation of forbidden knowledge or power, rather than a literal demon with agency and intent. Grimoire descriptions may be allegorical, intended to represent psychological or spiritual concepts rather than actual entities that can be summoned and controlled. Some skeptics might even argue that claims of demonic influence are often rooted in mental illness, social anxieties, or misinterpretations of natural phenomena. It is therefore important to approach these topics with critical thinking, avoiding sensationalism and maintaining a healthy dose of skepticism. After all, the power of suggestion and the human mind's capacity for self-deception should not be underestimated. Despite these valid counterarguments, the persistent and pervasive theme of hereditary influence within PAIMON's lore suggests a deeper, more complex aspect to his nature than mere symbolism. Even if PAIMON is not a literal entity, the concept of hereditary demonic influence is a potent one that has resonated throughout history and across cultures, tapping into primal fears about lineage, destiny, and the darker aspects of human inheritance. Therefore, whether literal or symbolic, the concept is incredibly potent and warrants careful analysis and further exploration as we move forward into upcoming segments. While understanding PAIMON's attributes and influence within the demonic hierarchy is crucial, we must now turn to an even more unsettling question. What of his alleged connection to specific bloodlines and families? Expanding beyond general demonic attributes, we must consider the accounts and beliefs surrounding families who either claim descent from PAIMON or are believed to be so connected, and the potential consequences of such a lineage. This exploration promises to reveal a disturbing intersection of demonology, genetics, and the occult, challenging conventional understanding of inheritance and raising profound questions about the nature of evil itself. To understand the context of hereditary demonic influence, we must first consider the broader concept of hereditary influence throughout human history. The notion that traits, destinies, or even curses can be passed down through generations is ancient and pervasive. From royal bloodlines believed to confer a divine right to rule, to inherited skills and aptitudes within artisan families, the idea of positive inheritance has shaped societies for millennia. Conversely, many cultures also believe in tainted blood, where negative traits, predispositions to disease, or ill-fated destinies are thought to be passed down through generations. Tales of cursed families, haunted by the sins of their ancestors, are common in folklore and mythology worldwide. Consider the House of Atreus in Greek tragedy, forever marked by betrayal, murder, and divine retribution. Or the idea of inherited sin in some religious traditions, where the actions of ancestors are believed to affect the fate of their descendants. This fascination with lineage, both positive and negative, underscores a deep-seated human concern with the forces that shape our lives and destinies, forces that we often perceive as operating beyond our individual control. The belief in hereditary demonic influence, while extreme, is but a specific example of this broader cultural fascination with lineage and inheritance. But how far can this fascination be allowed to go? The history of eugenics is a stark reminder of the dangers of pseudo-scientific attempts to control hereditary traits. But what exactly does hereditary demonic influence entail? How does it differ from general demonic possession or garden-variety demonic influence? The belief is that specific bloodlines or families may be more susceptible to demonic influence due to ancestral pacts, genetic predispositions, or even karmic debts accumulated over generations. This isn't simply a matter of individual vulnerability. It's a claim that entire families are marked by a demonic taint passed down through their blood. The concept of generational curses often plays a central role in this belief system. Negative events, patterns of misfortune, or recurring tragedies are attributed to a demonic force that has attached itself to a family, repeating its destructive cycle across multiple generations. It's important to distinguish between intentional and unintentional hereditary demonic influence. In some cases, families may knowingly engage in practices that perpetuate their connection to a demon, such as performing rituals or making offerings. In other cases, families may unknowingly carry a demonic seed, the result of actions taken by their ancestors long ago, actions whose consequences continue to reverberate through time. This insidious form of influence can manifest in subtle ways, affecting the family's health, relationships, and overall well-being. Are there specific examples of families who claim to be, or are rumored to be, connected to PAIMON? While concrete, verifiable evidence is scarce, occult traditions and whispered lore offer unsettling accounts. One recurring theme involves families who claim to possess ancient grimoires or artifacts associated with PAIMON, passed down through generations. These families allegedly guard these relics with fierce protectiveness, believing they hold the key to their power and destiny. Some claim that these families display unusual traits, such as recurring nightmares, unexplained illnesses, a heightened susceptibility to mental instability, or a pronounced predisposition towards occult practices. These alleged signs are often interpreted as manifestations of PAIMON's influence, a constant reminder of their inherited connection to the demonic realm. In certain cases, these families are said to engage in secret rituals designed to maintain their connection to PAIMON or appease his demands. These rituals may involve offerings, incantations, or even acts of sacrifice, performed in secluded locations and shrouded in secrecy. While direct references to hereditary demonic influence are rare in established grimoires, some passages hint at the possibility. Certain texts suggest that the power of a demon can be amplified through lineage, passed down through successive generations of practitioners who are willing to embrace the darkness. What secrets do these families hold, and what price have they paid for their alleged connection to PAIMON? Analyzing these claims, what psychological factors might contribute to the belief in hereditary demonic influence? Family trauma, mental illness, and a desire for power or control could all play a role. Families with a history of abuse, addiction, or mental health issues may be more likely to interpret their struggles through a demonic lens, attributing their misfortunes to an external force rather than confronting the underlying issues. The belief in hereditary demonic influence can also serve as a means of gaining power or control. By claiming a connection to a powerful demon like PAIMON, individuals may seek to elevate their status within occult circles or exert influence over others. Furthermore, the idea of inherited curses and blessings can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, shaping individuals' behavior and reinforcing their belief in a predetermined destiny. The symbolism of hereditary demonic influence can also be interpreted as a metaphor for inherited psychological patterns or dysfunctional family dynamics. Just as negative traits and behaviors can be passed down through generations, so too can the influence of a demonic force, representing the darker aspects of human nature that are perpetuated within families. What unspoken traumas are being masked by claims of demonic lineage? The social implications of these beliefs are equally disturbing. Families believed to be connected to demons are often stigmatized, ostracized, or even subjected to violence. This stigmatization can lead to further isolation and despair, reinforcing the belief in a demonic curse and perpetuating a cycle of suffering. The justification of discrimination and violence based on alleged demonic connections has a long and troubling history, reminding us of the dangers of demonizing entire groups of people. While these accounts are certainly disturbing, they raise a fundamental question about the nature of PAIMON's power. Is PAIMON an external entity that literally manipulates bloodlines, or is he a representation of something internal to these families' psyches, a manifestation of their own inner darkness? This brings us to the psychological and spiritual dimensions of PAIMON's influence, moving beyond the literal interpretation of demonic possession and hinting at far more subtle and insidious ways that PAIMON can affect individuals and families, regardless of their lineage. but we're just scratching the surface of how PAIMON can manifest. Of course, it is imperative to acknowledge that there is currently no scientific evidence to support the existence of hereditary demonic influence. Skeptics would rightly point out that these claims are often rooted in superstition, misinterpretations of mental illness, or even deliberate hoaxes designed to deceive and manipulate others. Many alleged signs of demonic influence can be explained by psychological or environmental factors without resorting to supernatural explanations. Furthermore, the dangers of blaming individuals or families for their misfortunes cannot be overstated. Offering support, understanding, and access to mental health resources is far more ethical and effective than passing judgment or perpetuating harmful stereotypes. It is important to remember that exploring these beliefs does not necessarily endorse them, but rather seeks to understand their cultural and psychological significance within specific contexts. What if the real demons are the prejudices and fears that drive us to condemn others based on unfounded beliefs? Despite the lack of scientific validation and the valid counterarguments, the persistent belief in hereditary demonic influence remains a potent force in occult traditions and popular culture. In summary, we can see that the concept of hereditary demonic influence is deeply intertwined with ideas of lineage, family dynamics, and the darker aspects of human nature. Whether interpreted literally or symbolically, the idea of inherited curses and blessings is a powerful narrative that has shaped human history and continues to resonate today. The exploration of such beliefs requires critical thinking and responsible engagement, acknowledging their potential for harm while also recognizing their capacity to reveal deeper truths about the human condition. But what awaits us as we delve deeper into the shadowy realm of PAIMON's influence? While the notion of hereditary demonic influence sends shivers down our spines, we must now consider a perhaps even more insidious aspect of PAIMON's reach: his potential impact on the human psyche, regardless of bloodline. This section aims to explore how PAIMON's influence may manifest not as overt possession, but as subtle manipulations of thoughts, emotions, and spiritual understanding. This exploration moves beyond the realm of the physical and dives into the complex and often treacherous landscape of the human mind, suggesting that even without blood ties, individuals can become susceptible to PAIMON's influence through specific psychological vulnerabilities or spiritual imbalances. To truly understand the psychological dimension of demonic influence, we must consider the history of interpreting these phenomena through a psychological lens. Early demonologists often attributed demonic possession to mental illness, lacking the sophisticated understanding of psychology that we possess today. However, even within spiritual traditions, the concept of internal demons has long existed. Negative thoughts, destructive emotions, and unchecked desires are often seen as self-created entities that can exert considerable control over the individual, clouding judgment and leading to destructive behaviors. This concept is echoed in modern psychology, where cognitive distortions and maladaptive coping mechanisms can create patterns of negative thinking and behavior that feel almost externally imposed. Throughout history, spiritual warfare has been waged not only against external demonic forces, but also against these internal demons, with practices like meditation, prayer, and self-reflection used to combat negative influences. This historical perspective is crucial for understanding how trauma, mental illness, and the power of suggestion can create vulnerabilities that make individuals susceptible to negative influences, whether those influences are perceived as demonic or psychological in origin. But what exactly does psychological susceptibility to demonic influence mean? It suggests that certain personality traits, past traumas, or underlying mental conditions can make individuals more vulnerable to manipulation, creating fertile ground for negative thoughts and emotions to take root. The belief is that PAIMON, with his vast knowledge and manipulative abilities, can exploit these vulnerabilities by amplifying negative thoughts, distorting perceptions, and creating a sense of spiritual isolation, weakening an individual's defenses and making them more susceptible to his influence. Equally important is the concept of spiritual imbalance, where a lack of connection to positive spiritual forces such as faith, hope, or love, or a preoccupation with negative energies can create an opening for PAIMON's influence. This imbalance can manifest as a deep-seated sense of emptiness, a lack of purpose, or a constant craving for external validation, leaving individuals vulnerable to manipulation and control. It is vital to distinguish between genuine spiritual experiences and psychological distortions, to avoid misinterpreting mental illness as demonic influence and vice versa, emphasizing the importance of discernment, critical thinking, and seeking professional help when experiencing psychological distress. Consider the case of Anna Eklund, a young woman in the early 20th century who underwent a series of exorcisms. While some religious figures attributed her distress to demonic possession, modern psychologists suggest that her symptoms may have been indicative of severe mental illness, exacerbated by the intense religious environment in which she lived. This case highlights the challenges of distinguishing between genuine spiritual phenomena and psychological distress, and the importance of considering both psychological and spiritual factors when assessing such cases. What are the alleged signs or symptoms of PAIMON's psychological influence? They may include obsessive thoughts, particularly those of a blasphemous or violent nature. Paranoia or a persistent feeling of being watched or manipulated. Spiritual doubt or a questioning of one's fundamental beliefs, and a fascination with forbidden knowledge or an obsessive pursuit of occult secrets without proper guidance or understanding. Practices that may increase susceptibility to PAIMON's influence include engaging in occult rituals without proper training or protection, dwelling on negative thoughts and emotions, isolating oneself from supportive communities, and engaging in substance abuse, all of which can weaken an individual's mental and spiritual defenses. The writings of Carl Jung, with his exploration of the shadow self and the collective unconscious, offer a fascinating lens through which to interpret PAIMON's influence, suggesting that he may represent the darker aspects of the human psyche, those repressed desires and fears that can exert a powerful influence over our thoughts and behaviors. This suggests that PAIMON's mastery of knowledge is not simply about possessing information, but about understanding the power of the mind to both create and destroy. The symbolism of PAIMON's attributes, such as his commanding presence and his knowledge of hidden things, can be interpreted as representing the power of the human psyche to both overcome challenges and succumb to temptation. Is PAIMON simply an external demon, or is he a symbol of the internal struggles that all humans face? However, blaming individuals for their own spiritual distress is not only unethical, but also potentially harmful, as it can lead to feelings of shame, guilt, and isolation, hindering their recovery. Offering compassionate support, understanding, and access to evidence-based treatment is essential, recognizing that mental and spiritual well-being are interconnected, and that both psychological and spiritual interventions may be necessary for healing. In the intricate tapestry of human experience, the threads of psychology and spirituality intertwine, shaping our perceptions, beliefs, and behaviors. Whether literal or symbolic, the idea of combating negative influences through spiritual and psychological practices is a potent one that has shaped human history and continues to resonate today. But while understanding the psychological dimensions of PAIMON's influence is important, it leads us to an even more profound question. Can PAIMON's influence be counteracted? And if so, what are the most effective methods for spiritual and psychological defense? This question moves us beyond the realm of demonology and into the realm of spiritual and psychological healing. exploring the practices and techniques used to protect oneself from PAIMON's influence. The next section will delve into these methods of defense, examining both traditional occult practices, such as banishing rituals and protective sigils, and modern psychological therapies, such as cognitive behavioral therapy and mindfulness meditation, and determining which, if any, are effective. Of course, it's essential to acknowledge that the concept of psychological or spiritual warfare may be viewed as superstitious or unscientific by some. The skeptical viewpoint holds that psychological distress is best addressed through evidence-based treatments, such as medication and psychotherapy, rather than through spiritual practices or occult rituals. It is also important to emphasize the importance of seeking professional help for mental health issues and the dangers of relying solely on occult or spiritual solutions, which may be ineffective or even harmful. However, exploring these beliefs does not necessarily endorse them, but rather seeks to understand their potential to provide comfort, meaning, or a sense of control in the face of adversity. What if these spiritual practices are nothing more than elaborate coping mechanisms, providing individuals with a framework for understanding and managing their own psychological distress? Despite the lack of scientific evidence for spiritual warfare and the valid counterarguments, the persistent belief in psychological and spiritual influence remains a powerful force in many cultures and traditions. In summary, the concept of psychological dimensions of PAIMON's influence emphasizes the importance of mental and emotional well-being for spiritual protection. Whether literal or symbolic, the idea of combating negative influences through spiritual and psychological practices is a potent one that has shaped human history and continues to resonate today. Critical thinking, responsible exploration, and seeking professional help are essential when engaging with these beliefs, acknowledging both their potential for harm and their capacity to provide hope and healing. But what awaits us as we continue our exploration of this complex and multifaceted entity? But while understanding the psychological dimensions of PAIMON's influence is vital, the question remains: can his influence be counteracted? And if so, what are the most effective methods for spiritual and psychological defense against such a formidable entity? We now embark on an investigation into the techniques employed throughout history, from ancient occult practices to modern psychological therapies, to combat demonic or negative influences, specifically those attributed to PAIMON. This is not a mere catalogue of superstitions, but a scrutinizing look at the historical context and practical applications of these defense strategies, separating genuine methods from psychological projections and cultural beliefs. Historically, practices aimed at spiritual defense have varied greatly across cultures, reflecting diverse belief systems and understandings of the unseen world. In Abrahamic religions, exorcism has long been a central practice, with trained priests or religious figures performing rituals to expel demons or malevolent spirits from possessed individuals. These rituals often involve prayer, scripture readings, the use of sacred objects, and the invocation of divine authority. The evolution of exorcism can be traced from ancient, community-based practices, where the entire village might participate in driving out evil spirits, to formalized religious rites with specific procedures and hierarchies. Understanding demonic influence has also changed over time, with some traditions viewing possession as a direct result of sin or moral failing, while others see it as a random affliction or a consequence of dabbling in the occult. Beyond the Abrahamic traditions, shamanic rituals in indigenous cultures often involve similar practices of spirit removal, with shamans acting as intermediaries between the human and spirit worlds. These rituals may include chanting, drumming, dancing, and the use of psychoactive substances to induce altered states of consciousness and communicate with spirits. In many pagan traditions, magical countermeasures, such as protective amulets, talismans, and banishing spells, were employed to ward off evil influences. These practices often emphasized the power of symbols, incantations, and the manipulation of natural energies to create a shield against negative forces. Furthermore, many esoteric traditions emphasize the importance of spiritual hygiene, the regular cleansing, purification, and protection of the aura and energy body through practices such as meditation, visualization, and energy work. With the emergence of modern psychology, initial views on demonic possession shifted dramatically, with many practitioners viewing such cases as manifestations of mental illness, such as schizophrenia or hysteria. This led to a move away from religious interpretations and towards clinical diagnoses and treatments. But what exactly is meant by spiritual defense? We can define it as a proactive and reactive set of practices aimed at negating or mitigating negative spiritual influences, including those attributed to entities like PAIMON. These practices can be broadly categorized into several types. First, there are protective amulets and talismans, objects imbued with specific symbols or energies believed to ward off evil. These might include religious medals, sigils inscribed with protective symbols, or stones believed to possess protective properties. Next, there are ritualistic banishments and cleansings, formal ceremonies designed to expel negative energies or entities from a person, place, or object. These rituals often involve specific incantations, gestures, and the use of cleansing agents such as smoke, salt, or water. There are also invocations of protective deities or spirits, calling upon benevolent beings for assistance and protection. This might involve prayer, meditation, or more elaborate rituals designed to establish contact with these entities. Finally, there are lifestyle adjustments aimed at promoting spiritual well-being, such as meditation, mindfulness, ethical conduct, and cultivating positive relationships, which can strengthen an individual's overall resilience to negative influences. It's important to contrast the magical approach to spiritual defense, which involves invoking external forces for aid, with the psychological approach, which focuses on strengthening internal resilience. The magical approach emphasizes the power of ritual and external entities, while the psychological approach emphasizes the power of the individual to control their own thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. However, discernment is key in spiritual defense, because it is important to distinguish between genuine spiritual threats and psychological projections or delusions. Is it truly a demonic attack or a manifestation of internal turmoil? Consider the alleged case of Johann Georg Fausto, a German scholar and magician of the Renaissance period, whose life became the basis for the Faust legend. According to historical accounts and literary adaptations, Faust allegedly made a pact with the demon Mephistopheles, trading his soul for knowledge and power. However, as the legend evolves, Faust becomes increasingly disillusioned with his demonic bargain and seeks ways to escape its clutches. While the legend doesn't explicitly mention PAIMON, it serves as a powerful allegory for the dangers of seeking forbidden knowledge and the potential for demonic influence to corrupt the human soul. In some interpretations, Faust employs various protective rituals and prayers in an attempt to break his pact and reclaim his spiritual freedom, representing a struggle against the very forces he initially embraced. Specific exorcism rituals targeting PAIMON are difficult to document definitively, given the secretive nature of occult practices. However, grimoires such as the Lesser Key of Solomon provide general guidelines for banishing spirits, which could be adapted for use against PAIMON. These rituals typically involve creating a consecrated space, reciting specific incantations, and using symbolic objects such as a sword, wand, or pentacle to command the demon to depart. Prayers to protective deities, such as Michael the Archangel, are often included to invoke divine assistance. The alleged outcomes of these rituals vary widely, ranging from a complete cessation of demonic activity to a temporary reprieve or even a worsening of the situation. Amulets and talismans associated with PAIMON are rare, as most occult practitioners tend to focus on banishing or controlling him rather than seeking his favor. However, some sources suggest that certain symbols, such as the Seal of Solomon or the pentagram, can be used for protection against any demonic influence, including PAIMONs. These symbols are believed to represent divine power and the ability to command spiritual forces. Finally, practitioners also attest to the importance of lifestyle adjustments in enhancing spiritual resilience. Meditation, mindfulness, and other contemplative practices can help to quiet the mind, reduce stress, and cultivate a sense of inner peace, making individuals less vulnerable to negative influences. Ethical conduct, such as honesty, compassion, and integrity, is also seen as essential for maintaining spiritual purity and warding off evil. Cultivating positive relationships with supportive friends and family can provide a strong social network and a sense of belonging, further strengthening an individual's defenses. But how effective are these spiritual defense techniques, really? From a spiritual perspective, their effectiveness is often attributed to the power of faith, intention, and divine intervention. Believers argue that these practices can create a direct connection to spiritual forces, allowing for the expulsion of negative entities and the restoration of spiritual balance. From a psychological perspective, the effectiveness of these techniques may be attributed to the placebo effect, the power of suggestion, and the psychological benefits of engaging in meaningful rituals. Even if the rituals themselves have no inherent power, the belief that they do can provide comfort, reduce anxiety, and increase self-efficacy, empowering individuals to take control of their lives and overcome perceived threats. The symbolism of various spiritual defense practices connects to archetypal themes of light versus darkness, order versus chaos, and self-mastery. The act of banishing a demon, for example, can be seen as a symbolic representation of overcoming one's own inner demons or negative tendencies. The invocation of protective deities can be seen as a symbolic act of seeking guidance and support from higher powers. Ultimately, the psychological benefits of engaging in these practices may be as important as any actual spiritual effects. These practices can reduce anxiety, increase self-efficacy, and foster a sense of control in the face of perceived threats. Even more intriguingly, the most effective defense against PAIMON may involve cultivating the very qualities that he embodies: knowledge, mastery, and control, but directing them towards positive ends. By understanding PAIMON's strengths and weaknesses, individuals can learn to harness those same qualities for their own benefit, becoming masters of their own minds and destinies. However, with such a wide range of spiritual defense techniques available, what happens when occult practices intersect with modern psychology and mental health? And how can these seemingly disparate fields inform one another in the context of PAIMON's influence? This question paves the way for an exploration of the integration of psychological therapies with spiritual practices, potentially offering a more holistic and effective approach to spiritual defense. But this integration also raises ethical considerations, particularly when dealing with vulnerable individuals. Of course, it's important to acknowledge the counterargument that spiritual defense is inherently superstitious or irrational, and that psychological distress is best addressed through evidence-based therapies alone. Skeptics often point out that claims of demonic influence are often rooted in mental illness or trauma, and that attempting to exorcise or banish demons can be harmful or counterproductive, potentially exacerbating psychological distress or delaying appropriate treatment. It is also important to emphasize the importance of seeking professional help for mental health issues and the dangers of relying solely on occult or spiritual solutions, which may be ineffective or even harmful. After all, exploring the potential benefits of integrating psychological therapies with spiritual practices does not endorse or legitimize harmful or unethical practices. Despite these counterarguments, the persistent human need to protect oneself from perceived negative influences remains a powerful force, shaping beliefs and behaviors across cultures and throughout history. In summary, the concept of spiritual defense encompasses a wide range of practices aimed at mitigating or negating negative spiritual influences, including those attributed to PAIMON. Whether spiritual defense is viewed as a literal battle against demonic forces or a symbolic struggle against internal negativity, the principles of self-care, resilience, and ethical conduct remain paramount. As our understanding of psychology and spirituality evolves, so too does our understanding of spiritual defense, creating new and innovative approaches to protecting ourselves from the unseen world. Is the history of spiritual defense, in a way, the history of humanity itself? While spiritual defense techniques offer a range of approaches to mitigating negative influences, a critical question arises. How do these occult practices intersect with modern psychology and mental health? And can these seemingly disparate fields inform one another, particularly in the context of understanding and addressing PAIMON's influence? We now turn to an exploration of the potential for integrating psychological therapies with spiritual practices, offering what could be a more holistic and effective approach to spiritual defense, bridging ancient beliefs with contemporary science, while also acknowledging the serious ethical tightrope one walks when suggesting that demons are real. However, this integration raises complex ethical considerations that must be carefully addressed, because while modern medicine may consider belief in PAIMON a mental disorder, to the believer, it's a very real threat. Historically, the relationship between occultism and psychology has been complex and often fraught with tension, yet also marked by moments of surprising convergence. Early psychoanalysts, such as Carl Jung, demonstrated a keen interest in occult phenomena, recognizing the potential for understanding the human psyche through the exploration of symbolism, mythology, and altered states of consciousness. Jung's concept of the collective unconscious, with its archetypes and universal symbols, provided a framework for interpreting occult experiences as manifestations of deeper psychological processes. He even explored the symbolic language of alchemy, seeing it as a reflection of the individual's journey towards self-realization, a process he termed individuation. However, as psychology evolved, the prevailing view shifted towards a more skeptical and empirically driven approach, often dismissing occult beliefs as irrational or pathological. Despite this skepticism, some psychologists continued to explore the potential for integrating spiritual and psychological perspectives, particularly with the emergence of transpersonal psychology in the late 20th century. This branch of psychology focuses on spiritual experiences, altered states, and the integration of psychological and spiritual perspectives, seeking to understand the human potential for transcendence and self-realization beyond the limitations of the ego. The evolution of understanding mental health in the context of religious and paranormal beliefs has been marked by shifts from purely pathological models to more nuanced, culturally sensitive approaches, recognizing that what may be considered abnormal in one culture may be perfectly acceptable in another. But what exactly do we mean by integrative approaches to spiritual and psychological well-being? Integrative approaches emphasize the combination of evidence-based therapies, such as cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, or dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, with practices rooted in occult or spiritual traditions, such as meditation, ritual, or energy work. The key lies in tailoring the therapeutic intervention to the client's individual belief system, a concept known as belief congruence. Belief congruence highlights the importance of aligning therapeutic interventions with the client's belief system, whether that involves traditional therapy, spiritual counseling, or ritual practices. This means that a therapist working with someone who believes they are under PAIMON's influence might incorporate elements of ritual or symbolism into the therapeutic process, while also addressing any underlying psychological issues, such as anxiety, depression, or trauma. The potential benefits of integrating these approaches are numerous, providing clients with a sense of empowerment, meaning, and control over their experiences, while also addressing underlying psychological issues that may be contributing to their distress. However, it is crucial to distinguish between responsible integration, which involves informed consent, ethical boundaries, and evidence-based practices, and harmful practices, such as exploitation, pseudoscience, or abuse of power. Consider the case of a young woman who believed she was being tormented by recurring nightmares and intrusive thoughts, which she attributed to the influence of a demonic entity, specifically PAIMON. Traditional therapy had provided some relief, but the nightmares persisted, leaving her feeling helpless and overwhelmed. Working with a therapist who was familiar with both psychological techniques and occult traditions, the woman began to explore the symbolism of her nightmares and the potential underlying psychological issues that they might represent. At the same time, the therapist incorporated elements of ritual and visualization into the therapy sessions, guiding the woman through a process of creating a protective amulet and visualizing herself banishing the demonic entity from her life. Over time, the woman reported a significant reduction in her nightmares and intrusive thoughts, as well as a greater sense of empowerment and control over her experiences. This outcome was possible because the practitioner was familiar with the belief system of the patient. Another example involves an occult practitioner who utilized psychological techniques to support their clients' mental and emotional well-being. Recognizing that many of their clients were struggling with anxiety, depression, or trauma, the practitioner incorporated elements of mindfulness, cognitive restructuring, and trauma-informed care into their practice. This allowed them to provide a more holistic and effective approach to healing, addressing both the spiritual and psychological needs of their clients. There has been little research on the effects of combining practices. However, a research study explored the psychological effects of ritual, meditation, or other spiritual practices, highlighting both potential benefits and risks. But what are the psychological mechanisms that underlie the effectiveness of these integrated approaches? One key factor is the placebo effect, the well-documented phenomenon in which a person's belief in a treatment can lead to real improvements in their condition, even if the treatment itself has no inherent power. The power of suggestion also plays a significant role, as the therapist's or practitioner's words and actions can influence the client's expectations and beliefs, leading to positive outcomes. Furthermore, the creation of meaning and the reduction of anxiety can be powerful therapeutic tools, providing clients with a sense of purpose and control in the face of perceived threats. The symbolism of occult practices can also be interpreted in a psychological context, serving as metaphors for internal processes, allowing individuals to externalize and work through their inner conflicts. For example, the act of banishing a demon can be seen as a symbolic representation of overcoming one's own inner demons or negative tendencies, providing a sense of catharsis and empowerment. It must be noted that these rituals are approached with the intention of healing the trauma and not with the actual goal of demon banishment. Understanding the psychological dimensions of his influence can empower individuals to reclaim their agency and develop effective coping strategies, reducing feelings of helplessness. However, while the integration of occult practices and modern psychology holds promise, it raises complex ethical considerations that must be carefully addressed. What are the ethical boundaries when combining these approaches, particularly when dealing with individuals who are deeply entrenched in their beliefs or experiencing psychological distress? We must now explore the potential for harm, exploitation, and the blurring of lines between therapy and spiritual practice, all while maintaining a sensitivity to the beliefs of the patient. This is where things can turn dangerous, because when we are dealing with the human mind, all kinds of unexpected repercussions can occur. Of course, it's vital to acknowledge the counterargument that integrating occult practices with psychology is inherently unethical or dangerous due to the lack of scientific evidence and the potential for exploitation. Skeptics often argue that belief in the occult is a sign of mental illness or cognitive distortion, and that promoting such beliefs can be harmful, and to be clear, it could be. It is, furthermore, vital to emphasize the importance of adhering to ethical guidelines and professional standards when working with individuals who hold occult beliefs, and the dangers of imposing one's own beliefs on others, which could lead to a harmful outcome. Also, let's be completely clear that exploring the potential benefits of integration does not endorse or legitimize unethical or harmful practices, and if we are not careful, it can be easy to fall into pseudoscience and abuse of power. Despite these counterarguments, the potential benefits of integrating occult practices with modern psychology warrant further exploration and responsible application, but the ethical considerations must be carefully addressed. Whether one views the occult as a literal force or a symbolic representation of internal processes, understanding the psychological dimensions of these beliefs can lead to more effective and compassionate approaches to spiritual and psychological well-being. The goal is to empower individuals to find meaning, purpose, and healing in ways that are aligned with their values and beliefs, while also protecting them from harm. So, as we've seen, the integration of occult practices with modern psychology holds promise for spiritual and psychological well-being. But what specific ethical guidelines should be followed to ensure responsible and beneficial practices? The exploration of spiritual defense and integrative approaches brings us to a critical juncture. What are the ethical boundaries when occult practices and modern psychology intersect, particularly when navigating the complex terrain of PAIMON's influence? In this crucial section, we will examine the potential for harm, exploitation, and the often blurred lines between legitimate therapy and spiritual practices. It is vital to clarify that this exploration does not endorse unethical actions, but rather seeks to illuminate the path toward responsible practice, informed consent, and a deep understanding of the sensitive and often misunderstood realm where the occult and the psyche converge. Historically, ethical codes in psychology and occultism have followed divergent paths, each shaped by unique philosophical underpinnings and societal contexts. In psychology, the formalization of ethical guidelines began in the mid-20th century, driven by concerns over unethical experimentation and the potential for harm in therapeutic relationships. The Nuremberg Code, established after World War II in response to Nazi medical atrocities, emphasized the importance of informed consent and the right of individuals to refuse participation in research. This code, along with subsequent ethical principles developed by organizations like the American Psychological Association, APA, stressed the need for beneficence, non-maleficence, fidelity, and integrity in all aspects of psychological practice. Occultism, on the other hand, has historically relied on oral traditions, mentorship, and self-regulation, with ethical codes often embedded within specific schools of thought or lineages. While some occult traditions emphasize personal responsibility and the pursuit of spiritual growth, others have been plagued by abuses of power, manipulation, and the exploitation of vulnerable individuals. Instances of unethical behavior within spiritual communities have led to significant harm, including psychological distress, financial ruin, and even physical abuse. The impact of cultural context on ethical considerations cannot be overstated. What is considered acceptable or harmful varies widely across different societies and subcultures, influenced by factors such as religious beliefs, social norms, and power dynamics. Connecting these historical ethical failures to current guidelines, we find that past mistakes inform present-day standards of practice, guiding us toward a more responsible and ethical approach to both psychology and occultism. To navigate this complex landscape, we must define key ethical principles relevant to the intersection of occultism and psychology. Informed consent, a cornerstone of ethical practice, requires that individuals fully understand the potential risks and benefits of any intervention, whether it be traditional therapy or an occult ritual. But how is informed consent handled differently when dealing with occult beliefs? Individuals must be fully aware of the potential psychological and spiritual ramifications, including the possibility of encountering unexpected phenomena, challenging their belief systems, or experiencing emotional distress. Maintaining strict boundaries is crucial to prevent exploitation or abuse of power, particularly when the practitioner holds a position of spiritual authority. The challenges of dual relationships, where a therapist is also a spiritual advisor, for instance, can create conflicts of interest and compromise objectivity. Competence is also critical, ensuring practitioners have adequate training and experience in both psychology and occultism, or know when to refer to someone who does. Cultural sensitivity demands that practitioners respect and understand the client's belief system, avoiding imposing their own worldview or dismissing the client's experiences. Non-maleficence, the principle of do no harm, requires practitioners to prioritize the well-being of their clients, avoiding interventions that could cause psychological, spiritual, or emotional distress. Consider the hypothetical scenario of a therapist imposing their occult beliefs on clients. Imagine a client seeking help for anxiety who is subtly encouraged to participate in rituals aligned with the therapist's personal spiritual practices, without a full understanding of the implications or the option to decline without fear of judgment. This would be a clear violation of informed consent and boundary principles. Another example involves practitioners exploiting vulnerable individuals. A person struggling with grief, seeking solace in a spiritual community, might be pressured into donating large sums of money or engaging in activities that feel uncomfortable due to the perceived authority of the spiritual leader and the fear of negative consequences. Instances of spiritual bypassing occur when individuals use occult beliefs to avoid addressing underlying psychological issues, potentially exacerbating their distress. Someone might attribute their depression to a demonic influence, focusing solely on ritual cleansing while neglecting the need for therapy and medication. Practitioners lacking adequate training in either psychology or occultism can also cause harm. A self-proclaimed spiritual healer without a background in mental health might misdiagnose a client's condition, prescribe inappropriate remedies, or fail to recognize the signs of a serious mental illness. This could lead to devastating consequences. Cultural insensitivity can also manifest in various ways. A practitioner who dismisses a client's deeply held beliefs about ancestral spirits as superstition invalidates their experiences and undermines the therapeutic relationship. The psychological dynamics that contribute to ethical breaches are complex and multifaceted. Power imbalances inherent in both therapeutic and spiritual relationships can create opportunities for exploitation. Transference and countertransference, psychological phenomena in which unconscious feelings and desires are projected onto the therapist or client, can further blur boundaries and cloud judgment. Suggestibility, the tendency to accept and act on the suggestions of others, can be heightened in spiritual contexts, making individuals more vulnerable to manipulation. Confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out information that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs, can lead practitioners to misinterpret or disregard evidence that contradicts their worldview. The desire for quick fixes or magical solutions can also drive unethical behavior, as individuals seek shortcuts to healing or empowerment without fully understanding the risks involved. Interpreting ethical principles in the context of occult beliefs we can see that they serve as safeguards against the darker aspects of human nature and the potential for spiritual abuse. They act as a compass, guiding practitioners toward responsible and compassionate practice, ensuring that the pursuit of knowledge and power does not come at the expense of individual well-being. A critical component is encouraging practitioners to examine their own motivations, biases, and potential for harm, and to consistently engage in critical self-reflection. Connecting these interpretations back to PAIMON's attributes, we can surmise that his mastery of knowledge can be used for both ethical and unethical purposes, highlighting the need for responsible practice and the careful consideration of consequences. Understanding these ethical boundaries is essential, but it raises a practical question. How do PAIMON-related rituals specifically navigate risks, and how are those risks communicated? This leads us to ask, what specific rituals are associated with PAIMON, and what are the potential dangers, both psychological and spiritual, involved in performing them? We will now move from these broad ethical considerations to concrete examples of PAIMON-related rituals and their inherent risks, exploring the practical aspects of ritual safety, informed consent in a ritual context, and the potential for psychological distress. However, it's vital to acknowledge the counterargument that strict ethical guidelines may stifle personal expression, spiritual freedom, or the exploration of unconventional beliefs. Some argue that imposing rigid rules can limit creativity, intuition, and the potential for transformative experiences. There are those who claim that adhering to guidelines may hinder the development of a deep, personal connection with the divine or with spiritual entities like PAIMON. It's crucial to remember that ethical practices can be viewed as a framework for safe and meaningful exploration, rather than a set of restrictive rules. It's a matter of perspective. Finding a balance between protecting vulnerable individuals and respecting their autonomy to make their own choices, even if those choices seem unconventional or risky, is incredibly important. The goal is not to eliminate all risk, but to minimize harm and promote responsible engagement with occult beliefs and practices, because sometimes great reward requires great risk. Whether one views PAIMON as a literal entity or a symbolic representation of internal processes, the potential for harm is real, making ethical boundaries essential for all practitioners. And so, while the debate over ethical boundaries in occultism and psychology may continue, the importance of responsible practice remains paramount. In summary, we've covered key points about ethical principles, including informed consent, boundaries, competence, and cultural sensitivity, emphasizing their application to PAIMON-related practices. With a dedication to empowering others through respectful, responsible, and safe practices, what specific rituals are associated with PAIMON, and what are the potential dangers, both psychological and spiritual, involved in performing them? With these ethical considerations in mind, we now move from the theoretical to the practical, exploring specific rituals associated with PAIMON, leaving behind the question of should and beginning to investigate how. This section intends to provide concrete examples of these rituals, meticulously detailing the steps involved and the inherent risks, both psychological and spiritual, that practitioners may encounter. We will navigate the treacherous waters of ritual risk, emphasizing the absolute necessity of informed consent within any ritual context, and acknowledging the very real potential for acute psychological distress, all while unveiling the practices that some occultists throughout history have dared to attempt. Ritual magic, as a practice, has roots stretching back to the earliest expressions of human spirituality. From the shamanistic traditions of ancient cultures to the formalized systems of ancient Egypt, Greece, and Rome, ritual has served as a means of connecting with the divine, influencing the natural world, and achieving personal transformation. In ancient Egypt, elaborate rituals were performed to ensure the pharaoh's safe passage to the afterlife and to maintain cosmic order. In ancient Greece, mystery cults such as the Eleusinian mysteries used ritual to induce altered states of consciousness and provide initiates with profound spiritual experiences. These early rituals, infused with symbolism and steeped in tradition, laid the groundwork for the development of more complex magical systems. This foundation evolved through ancient pagan practices. The medieval period saw the development of ritual magic with the emergence of grimoires, books containing spells, invocations, and instructions for performing magical operations. During this time, pagan practices became Christianized by medieval monks. The Key of Solomon and the Lesser Key of Solomon are examples of grimoires that attempted to codify and systematize magical knowledge, often attributing their origins to King Solomon, a figure revered for his wisdom and magical abilities. As Christianity spread across Europe, pagan practices were often demonized and absorbed into the Christian framework, with ancient deities and spirits reinterpreted as demons. This process led to the creation of a complex system of demonology, in which demons were believed to possess specific powers and could be summoned and controlled through ritual magic. The Renaissance and early modern periods saw a renewed interest in Hermeticism, Kabbalah, and Neoplatonism, which further influenced the evolution of ritual magic. Figures like Marsilio Ficino and Pico della Mirandola sought to synthesize ancient wisdom traditions with Christian theology, leading to the development of new magical systems that emphasized the power of symbolism, correspondences, and the human will. This period also saw the rise of ceremonial magic, a highly structured and elaborate form of ritual magic that involved the use of complex rituals, specialized tools, and detailed instructions. All of this was further explored and advanced through the study and translation of ancient texts. Modern occult traditions have witnessed a resurgence of interest in ritual magic, largely due to the influence of figures like Aleister Crowley and the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Crowley, a prominent occultist and ceremonial magician, developed his own system of magic known as the Lemma, which emphasized the importance of personal will and the attainment of spiritual enlightenment through ritual practice. The Golden Dawn, a secret society founded in the late 19th century, combined elements of Hermeticism, Kabbalah, and ceremonial magic into a comprehensive system of occult training. These modern movements have played a crucial role in shaping contemporary understanding and practice of ritual magic. But what exactly is ritual magic? Ritual magic can be defined as a system of practices designed to achieve specific goals through symbolic actions, incantations, and the manipulation of spiritual forces. The structure of a typical PAIMON-related ritual generally follows a consistent pattern. First, preparations must be made, which include cleansing and consecration. Next, the invocation, which is the process of calling upon PAIMON. Then communication with PAIMON, where the practitioner attempts to receive knowledge or guidance. Finally, dismissal, where PAIMON is respectfully released. These steps are not arbitrary, each serves a distinct purpose. Certain tools are used, each with its own symbolic meaning and function. Sigils, candles, incense, robes, and other symbolic objects each contribute to the ritual's overall effect. The sigil of PAIMON, for instance, serves as a focal point for energy and a symbolic representation of the demon's essence. Candles are used to provide light and symbolize the element of fire, while incense creates a specific atmosphere and is believed to purify the space. Robes, often worn by the practitioner, serve to delineate the ritual space and create a sense of separation from the mundane world. These tools aren't mere props. They are integral components of the ritual, each imbued with symbolic power and intention. Central to ritual magic is the concept of energy work, where practitioners manipulate their own energy and the energy of the environment to achieve desired effects. This involves techniques such as visualization, meditation, and the channeling of spiritual forces. By focusing their intention and manipulating energy, practitioners believe they can influence the outcome of the ritual and achieve their desired goals. Understanding how to harness and direct this energy is paramount to a successful ritual. For example, the Lesser Key of Solomon details a ritual for invoking PAIMON, requiring the practitioner to wear a magical robe, create a consecrated space, and recite specific incantations. The ritual also calls for the use of PAIMON's sigil, which is to be drawn on parchment and placed within the consecrated space. The Grimorium Verum offers a similar ritual, but with added instructions for offering incense and making specific requests to PAIMON. In these rituals, PAIMON's sigil allegedly serves as a conduit, focusing the practitioner's energy and establishing a connection with the demon. During these rituals, practitioners commonly seek knowledge, power, or the ability to influence others. They might ask PAIMON for assistance in gaining wealth, obtaining love, or achieving success in their endeavors. Some accounts from occult practitioners describe positive experiences, reporting a sense of connection to spiritual forces and the attainment of their desired goals. However, others describe negative experiences, including feelings of fear, paranoia, and a sense of being drained or attacked by malevolent entities. One practitioner, writing anonymously in an online forum, described feeling an overwhelming sense of dread and a persistent feeling of being watched after attempting to invoke PAIMON. Another reported experiencing vivid nightmares and a series of unexplained misfortunes. This symbolism can be interpreted as representing the archetypal themes of power, knowledge, and transformation. The act of invoking PAIMON can be seen as a symbolic journey into the depths of the unconscious, where the practitioner confronts their shadow self and seeks to integrate its power. The psychological effects of performing these rituals can include altered states of consciousness, heightened emotions, and a profound sense of connection to spiritual forces. Some practitioners describe experiencing a sense of euphoria, while others report feeling fear, anxiety, or even terror. These experiences can be transformative, leading to personal growth and a deeper understanding of the self. Is PAIMON a catalyst for personal growth, a source of forbidden knowledge, or perhaps a symbol of the shadow self? But these powerful rituals aren't without significant peril, so what specific psychological and spiritual risks are associated with performing PAIMON-related rituals, and how can practitioners mitigate these dangers? These rituals may be presented as tools for empowerment and transformation, but they inherently involve potential dangers for the unprepared. We'll explore the potential for psychological distress, spiritual attack, and ethical breaches in ritual practice. The next section will specifically focus on the risks of ritual practices with PAIMON, offering practical guidance for those who choose to engage with them. However, it is important to acknowledge the counterargument that all ritual magic is inherently dangerous or delusional, and that engaging in such practices can lead to mental instability or spiritual harm. It's also important to acknowledge the skeptical viewpoint, which suggests that claims of demonic encounters are often rooted in psychological projections, suggestibility, or misinterpretations of natural phenomena. Skeptics emphasize the importance of responsible practice, critical thinking, and seeking professional help for mental health issues, cautioning against attributing psychological problems to supernatural causes. Dismissing these claims, though, also disregards the very real experiences that many occultists have reported. Ultimately, whether one views PAIMON as a literal entity or a symbolic representation of internal processes, the potential for harm is real, making responsible practice essential. Whether one views PAIMON as a force for personal empowerment or a dangerous entity, the persistent human fascination with these practices suggests a deeper need for meaning, connection, and personal empowerment. Responsible practice is essential, no matter what your views are. We have covered key points about PAIMON-related rituals, including their structure, symbolism, and potential psychological effects. As we move forward, it is important to ask, what specific psychological and spiritual risks are associated with performing PAIMON-related rituals, and what can practitioners do to mitigate these dangers, or are they doomed from the start? Now, let's turn our attention to the darker side of PAIMON-related rituals. While we've explored the structure, symbolism, and potential benefits, it's crucial to confront the very real risks involved. What are the specific psychological and spiritual dangers that practitioners may face, and how can these be responsibly navigated? This section delves into the potential for psychological distress, spiritual attack, and ethical breaches that can arise from engaging with PAIMON, offering a stark warning alongside a path to informed, cautious exploration. Throughout history, accounts of ritual mishaps and negative outcomes in occult practices serve as a cautionary reminder. Ancient grimoires, often filled with warnings about the dangers of improperly performed rituals, detail cases of practitioners driven to madness, haunted by malevolent entities, or afflicted by inexplicable misfortune. In the Middle Ages, stories circulated about sorcerers who, after invoking demonic forces, suffered terrifying consequences, including physical illness, social ostracism, and even death. Modern occult literature echoes these warnings, with contemporary practitioners sharing accounts of psychological breakdowns, spiritual attacks, and ethical dilemmas encountered during ritual work. These narratives underscore the importance of adhering to safety guidelines and best practices. The development of safety guidelines and best practices evolved over time, often through trial and error. Within various occult traditions, mentors and initiators played a crucial role in guiding practitioners and preventing harm, emphasizing lineage and proper training. Folk traditions also dealt with demonic forces through various methods of protection and banishment, rooted in cultural beliefs and practices. Was this a genuine protective measure or just a placebo effect? In the context of PAIMON-related rituals, psychological distress manifests as a range of adverse mental health effects. Anxiety, paranoia, depression, dissociation, and even psychotic episodes can arise from the intense psychological and emotional demands of ritual practice. The altered states of consciousness induced during rituals can blur the lines between reality and illusion, leading to confusion and disorientation. The powerful symbolism employed in these rituals can stir up repressed emotions and unresolved traumas, triggering psychological distress. Practitioners may experience a sense of being overwhelmed, vulnerable, or even possessed. Spiritual attack, as understood by practitioners, refers to the belief that negative entities or energies can target the practitioner, causing harm, disruption, or oppression. Symptoms may include nightmares, sleep paralysis, unexplained physical ailments, persistent feelings of dread, and a sense of being watched or followed. Practitioners may believe that these attacks are the result of improperly performed rituals, breaches of ethical conduct, or the inherent malevolence of the entities involved. Finally, ethical breaches in ritual practice involve manipulating or coercing others, violating boundaries, or misrepresenting one's abilities or intentions. These breaches can have devastating consequences for both the perpetrator and the victim. Specific examples of psychological distress abound in documented cases, online forums, and anecdotal accounts. Some individuals report experiencing intense anxiety and paranoia after performing PAIMON-related rituals, fearing that they are being constantly watched or that malevolent forces are plotting against them. Others describe sinking into deep depression, feeling hopeless and disconnected from reality. Dissociation, a state of detachment from one's body or surroundings, is also commonly reported. Accounts of spiritual attack describe the alleged symptoms and effects, as well as the methods used to combat these attacks. Practitioners report experiencing vivid nightmares, sleep paralysis, and unexplained physical ailments. They may also describe feeling a persistent sense of dread or being watched, leading them to believe that they are being targeted by negative entities or energies. Ethical breaches committed in the context of PAIMON-related rituals include instances of manipulation, coercion, and boundary violations. Some practitioners have been accused of using ritual magic to control or influence others without their consent, causing significant harm to their victims. Others have been found guilty of misrepresenting their abilities or intentions, exploiting vulnerable individuals for personal gain. Grimoires and occult texts warn of the dangers of improperly performed rituals, focusing on passages that mention PAIMON. The Lesser Key of Solomon, for example, cautions against summoning PAIMON without proper preparation and protection, warning that the demon may turn against the practitioner if disrespected. Is it possible that these texts are just cautionary tales to protect the secrets of these rituals? The psychological factors that might contribute to psychological distress during or after PAIMON-related rituals are complex. Suggestibility, the tendency to accept and act on the suggestions of others, can play a significant role, particularly in altered states of consciousness. Confirmation bias, the tendency to seek out and interpret information that confirms one's existing beliefs, can reinforce negative expectations and exacerbate feelings of fear and anxiety. Altered states of consciousness, induced through meditation, visualization, or other techniques, can blur the lines between reality and illusion, making practitioners more susceptible to psychological distress. The symbolism of spiritual attack can be interpreted as a manifestation of internal conflicts, repressed emotions, or unresolved traumas. The demons we face may be projections of our own inner demons, reflecting our deepest fears and anxieties. Engaging in practices that could potentially harm oneself or others raises serious ethical implications. Informed consent, personal responsibility, and a commitment to non-maleficence are essential. Practitioners must be fully aware of the potential risks involved and must take steps to protect themselves and others from harm. Furthermore, they must respect the autonomy and boundaries of others, refraining from any actions that could manipulate or coerce them without their consent. These interpretations connect back to PAIMON's attributes, suggesting that he represents the power of knowledge and manipulation. This power can be used for both good and evil, highlighting the need for discernment and ethical awareness. The knowledge that PAIMON offers can be used to gain insight into the self and the world, but it can also be used to deceive and manipulate others. The ability to influence others can be used to promote positive change, but it can also be used to exploit and control them. Ultimately, the practitioner must choose how to wield this power, recognizing the potential consequences of their actions. But if these rituals can bring so much potential harm, why do so many risk their lives in pursuit of them? While these risks are significant, responsible practitioners have developed strategies to mitigate them. What are the key risk mitigation strategies in PAIMON-related rituals, and how can practitioners minimize the potential for harm, both psychological and spiritual? The next section will delve into specific techniques for psychological and spiritual protection, informed consent protocols, and guidelines for responsible practice. It's also worth acknowledging the counterargument that fear-mongering about the risks of ritual magic can discourage genuine exploration and spiritual growth, potentially stigmatizing practitioners. Some individuals may thrive on the perceived dangers of ritual magic, viewing it as a form of self-discovery or a test of their spiritual fortitude. Ultimately, individual autonomy and the right to engage in practices that align with one's beliefs must be respected, as long as those practices do not harm others or violate their rights. Exploring the risks of PAIMON-related rituals is not intended to scare people away, but rather to empower them to make informed decisions and engage in these practices responsibly. Are these risks worth taking for self-discovery? While the debate over the dangers of ritual magic may continue, the importance of understanding and mitigating these risks remains paramount. The psychological and spiritual risks associated with PAIMON-related rituals underscore the importance of ethical conduct, responsible practice, and a commitment to personal safety. Whether one views PAIMON as a literal entity or a symbolic representation of internal processes, the potential for harm is real, making risk mitigation strategies essential. Knowledge, caution, respect, and a commitment to ethical principles are essential when engaging with ritual magic. Ultimately, whether one views PAIMON as a force for personal empowerment or a dangerous entity, knowledge is power. What specific techniques can practitioners employ to ensure their psychological and spiritual well-being when engaging with PAIMON-related rituals? And how can they navigate the ethical complexities inherent in these practices? While the potential risks associated with PAIMON-related rituals are undeniable, the responsible practitioner understands that knowledge alone is not enough. Action is required. This section addresses the call for actionable safety measures, providing specific, practical risk mitigation strategies designed not as an endorsement, but as a guide for harm reduction. It frames the discussion as responsible exploration, recognizing that the allure of the unknown demands both courage and caution. We are not encouraging reckless pursuit, we are advocating informed and prepared engagement. Throughout history, magical traditions have developed protective practices to navigate the unseen realms. Ancient Egyptians used amulets bearing protective symbols like the Eye of Horus to ward off malevolent spirits. In ancient Greece, talismans engraved with sigils and incantations were worn for protection. Medieval grimoires detail spells for binding demons and creating protective circles. These practices evolved from a deep-seated understanding of the potential dangers inherent in engaging with supernatural forces. Specific herbs, stones, and symbols have long been believed to possess protective properties. Rue was used in ancient Rome to ward off evil influences, while amethyst was thought to protect against psychic attacks. The pentagram, an ancient symbol with roots in Pythagorean mathematics, has been used in various occult traditions as a symbol of protection and banishment. These elements were not merely superstitious trinkets. They were integral components of a system designed to mitigate risk and ensure the safety of the practitioner. Moreover, the role of initiations and mentorship in transmitting protective knowledge cannot be overstated. In many traditions, initiates undergo rigorous training and testing before being entrusted with sensitive information or allowed to perform advanced rituals. Mentors guide their students, sharing their knowledge and experience and ensuring that they are adequately prepared to face the challenges that lie ahead. How many secrets have been lost to time because of the risks? Even ancient temples provided physical and spiritual protection from malevolent forces, with sacred spaces designed to create a barrier between the mundane world and the divine. Central to mitigating risks are grounding, shielding, and banishing techniques. Grounding refers to methods for connecting with the Earth's energy, stabilizing one's energy field, and maintaining a sense of presence during ritual work. It's a way of staying anchored in reality, preventing the practitioner from becoming overwhelmed by the intense energies and altered states of consciousness induced during rituals. Think of it as an energetic anchor, preventing you from being swept away by the currents of the unseen. Shielding techniques involve creating a protective barrier around oneself, deflecting negative energies, and preventing spiritual intrusion. This barrier can be visualized as a bubble of light, a suit of armor, or any other symbol that resonates with the practitioner. It acts as a buffer, absorbing or deflecting any unwanted energies or influences. Banishing rituals are methods for expelling unwanted entities or energies from a space, person, or object, restoring balance and harmony. These rituals often involve the use of specific gestures, incantations, and symbols designed to disrupt and dispel negative influences. Consider it a spiritual cleansing, removing any lingering residue or unwanted presences. Finally, informed consent in a ritual context emphasizes the importance of transparency, voluntary participation, and a clear understanding of potential risks. It's about ensuring that all participants are fully aware of what they are getting into and have the right to refuse participation at any time. Specific grounding exercises can be adapted for ritual practice. Visualization techniques involve imagining roots extending from one's body into the earth, drawing energy and stability from the planet. Breathing exercises, such as deep diaphragmatic breathing, can help to calm the nervous system and promote a sense of presence. Physical activities, such as walking barefoot on the earth or engaging in grounding yoga poses, can further strengthen the connection with the earth's energy. Shielding techniques include visualizing a protective bubble of light surrounding oneself, reinforcing it with affirmations and intentions. The use of protective symbols, such as the pentagram or the hamsa, can also enhance the effectiveness of the shield. Invoking protective deities or spirits, such as Archangel Michael or a personal guardian angel, can provide additional layers of protection. Examples of banishing rituals include the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, a staple in Western occultism, adapted for use in PAIMON-related practices. The ritual involves tracing pentagrams in the air while chanting specific names of power, effectively cleansing the space and expelling unwanted energies. Sample-informed consent protocols for PAIMON-related rituals include disclosures about potential psychological, spiritual, and ethical risks, participant rights, emergency contact information, and procedures for withdrawing from the ritual at any time. Each participant should sign a written consent form, confirming their understanding and voluntary participation. The psychological effects of grounding, shielding, and banishing techniques extend beyond mere ritual practice. Grounding techniques can reduce anxiety and increase self-confidence by promoting a sense of stability and control. Shielding techniques can foster a sense of security and empowerment by creating a protective boundary against perceived threats. Banishing rituals can provide a sense of closure and resolution by expelling unwanted influences and restoring balance. The symbolism of these techniques can be interpreted as metaphors for establishing healthy boundaries, asserting personal power, and protecting oneself from harm. Grounding represents the importance of staying connected to reality and not getting lost in fantasy. Shielding symbolizes the need to protect oneself from negative influences and maintain a sense of personal autonomy. Banishing represents the power to overcome adversity and restore harmony. The ethical implications of informed consent in a ritual context underscore the importance of respecting individual autonomy and preventing coercion. Transparency, honesty, and respect are paramount, ensuring that all participants are treated with dignity and have the right to make informed decisions about their involvement. Ultimately, these protective measures can help practitioners engage with PAIMON's power in a responsible and ethical manner. But can ritual ever truly be safe? While these techniques offer practical protection, mental health preparedness is also essential. How can practitioners prepare themselves psychologically and emotionally for PAIMON-related rituals, and what mental health strategies can they employ to mitigate potential distress? The role of self-assessment, emotional regulation, and support systems in promoting mental well-being during ritual practice cannot be overstated, because the next section will focus on specific mental health strategies, including self-care practices and recognizing when professional help is needed. It is important to acknowledge the counterargument that relying on protective techniques can create a false sense of security, leading to complacency or recklessness in ritual practice. One might think that a shield makes them invincible. Some individuals may view the risks of ritual practice as a challenge to be overcome, rejecting the need for safety precautions altogether. There exists the belief that fear is weakness. However, humility, self-awareness, and a realistic assessment of one's abilities and limitations are paramount. These techniques are not guarantees of safety, but rather tools for reducing risk and promoting responsible engagement with occult practices. The ritual space may be a lab, but you are still the experiment. Ultimately, while the effectiveness of risk mitigation strategies may vary, the commitment to personal safety and ethical conduct remains paramount. Whether one views PAIMON as a literal entity or a symbolic representation of internal processes, the potential for harm is real, making risk mitigation strategies essential. Grounding, shielding, banishing, and informed consent play a crucial role in creating a safer and more responsible ritual environment. Knowledge, caution, respect, and ethical principles must guide all engagements with PAIMON-related rituals, empowering individuals to explore these practices in a safe and responsible manner. But is it truly possible to control the forces that such rituals unleash? While these techniques offer practical protection, mental health preparedness forms an equally crucial layer of risk mitigation. This is not an alternative to the practical strategies we've discussed, but a vital component for those who choose to engage with PAIMON-related rituals. In this section, we explore how practitioners can psychologically and emotionally prepare for these intense experiences, and how specific mental health strategies can mitigate potential distress. We will examine self-assessment techniques, methods for emotional regulation, grounding exercises adapted for mental health, the crucial role of support systems, and the situations where professional help becomes essential. Throughout history, various cultures have approached mental health in the context of intense spiritual experiences with differing perspectives. In some indigenous societies, altered states of consciousness were viewed as sacred and facilitated by shamans or spiritual leaders. These experiences were often seen as a path to healing and connection with the divine. However, Western cultures have often pathologized such experiences, particularly when they deviate from societal norms. The rise of modern psychology brought new frameworks for understanding mental health, emphasizing the importance of individual well-being and evidence-based interventions. As our understanding of trauma has evolved, we've also come to recognize the potential for trauma-related responses during or after intense spiritual practices. Rituals, especially those involving powerful entities like PAIMON, can trigger latent trauma or create new traumatic experiences if not approached with care and sensitivity. It is also crucial to acknowledge the development of peer support networks within occult communities. These networks play a vital role in providing a safe and supportive environment where individuals can share their experiences, seek guidance, and access resources. However, it's equally important to ensure that these networks are grounded in ethical principles and do not perpetuate harmful beliefs or practices. Self-assessment, in the context of PAIMON-related rituals, is the practice of honestly evaluating one's mental and emotional state before engaging in these intense practices. It's about taking an inventory of your vulnerabilities, strengths, and coping mechanisms. This process involves examining your past experiences, identifying any existing mental health conditions, and assessing your current emotional state. Are you feeling anxious, depressed, or overwhelmed? Are you dealing with any unresolved trauma? Answering these questions honestly is the first step in determining whether you are psychologically prepared for the potential challenges of ritual practice. Emotional regulation, on the other hand, refers to the ability to manage and modulate intense emotions, preventing them from escalating into psychological distress. This involves learning specific techniques, such as mindfulness, meditation, and cognitive restructuring, that can help you stay grounded and centered during challenging experiences. Mindfulness involves paying attention to the present moment without judgment, observing your thoughts and feelings as they arise and pass away. Meditation can help you cultivate a sense of inner peace and calm, reducing anxiety and promoting emotional stability. Cognitive restructuring involves challenging negative thoughts and beliefs, replacing them with more balanced, and realistic perspectives. Finally, trauma-informed care is an approach that recognizes the impact of trauma on mental and emotional health, emphasizing sensitivity, safety, and empowerment. It involves creating a safe and supportive environment where individuals feel comfortable sharing their experiences and accessing resources without fear of judgment or re-traumatization. It acknowledges that past trauma can significantly influence one's response to ritual practices and emphasizes the need for personalized and respectful care. Specific self-assessment tools can aid practitioners in evaluating their readiness for PAIMON-related rituals. Questionnaires such as the Depression, Anxiety and Stress Scale, DASS, or the Trauma Screening Questionnaire, TSQ, can provide a structured way to assess your current mental state. Journaling prompts, such as, "What are my biggest fears about working with PAIMON?" or "What are my coping mechanisms for dealing with stress?" can encourage deeper self-reflection. For example, a practitioner might journal daily for a week before a ritual, honestly recording their emotional state, any intrusive thoughts, and their overall sense of well-being. Mindfulness and meditation techniques can be adapted for ritual practice. Focusing on the breath, observing thoughts without judgment, or visualizing a safe space can help maintain composure. One might visualize a protective barrier of light surrounding them, reinforcing it with affirmations such as, "I am safe, I am strong, I am in control." Cognitive restructuring techniques can also be incredibly effective. Imagine a practitioner who fears PAIMON's power. They might challenge this fear by asking, "Is this fear based on evidence or on assumptions?" They could then replace the negative thought with a more balanced perspective, such as, "PAIMON's power can be used for both good and ill, and I have the ability to choose how I interact with it." Support systems are networks of trusted individuals who provide emotional support, guidance, and reality checks during and after rituals. A support system can consist of friends, family members, therapists, or other experienced practitioners who understand the challenges and risks involved. The psychological benefits of self-assessment, emotional regulation, and support systems are profound, potentially increasing self-awareness, reducing anxiety, and promoting resilience. By honestly evaluating their mental and emotional state, practitioners can gain a deeper understanding of their strengths and vulnerabilities, allowing them to make more informed decisions about their ritual practice. Emotional regulation techniques can help practitioners manage the intense emotions that may arise during or after rituals, preventing psychological distress and promoting emotional stability. Support systems can provide a safe and supportive environment where practitioners can share their experiences, seek guidance, and access resources, reducing feelings of isolation and promoting a sense of belonging. The symbolism of these techniques can be interpreted as metaphors for developing self-mastery, establishing healthy boundaries, and cultivating inner strength. Self-assessment represents the importance of self-awareness and introspection. Emotional regulation symbolizes the ability to control one's emotions and prevent them from controlling you. Support systems represent the value of community and the importance of seeking help when needed. The ethical implications of engaging in PAIMON-related rituals without adequate mental health preparedness underscore the importance of personal responsibility and a commitment to non-maleficence. Practitioners have a responsibility to protect their own mental and emotional well-being, as well as the well-being of others involved in the ritual. This means taking the necessary steps to prepare themselves psychologically and emotionally for the potential challenges of ritual practice and to seek help if they experience any signs of distress. These interpretations circle back to PAIMON's attributes, suggesting that his mastery of knowledge can be used to enhance self-understanding and promote psychological well-being. By seeking to understand oneself, one can hope to understand the entity he represents. While these strategies promote inner resilience, there are situations when professional mental health support is not just beneficial, but necessary. How can practitioners recognize when they need professional mental health support? And what types of therapy are most appropriate for addressing the psychological effects of PAIMON-related rituals? This section will focus on the signs and symptoms of mental health distress, the importance of seeking qualified help, and the potential benefits of specific therapeutic approaches, such as trauma-informed therapy or cognitive behavioral therapy. However, it's vital to examine whether mental health support can be integrated ethically and effectively into occult practices. There exists the counterargument that relying on mental health strategies can pathologize spiritual experiences or undermine the power of ritual practice, or that it constitutes a secular intrusion upon sacred experiences. Some individuals may view psychological distress as a sign of spiritual growth or a necessary part of the transformative process, and interference might be seen as a hindrance. It's also possible that individuals could interpret strong emotional reactions as proof of a ritual's effectiveness, further discouraging the use of mental health strategies. However, it remains imperative to respect individual beliefs and choices while ensuring access to accurate information and qualified support. Mental health strategies are not intended to replace spiritual practices, but to complement them, promoting well-being and preventing harm. The goal is not to diminish spiritual experiences, but rather to equip individuals with the tools to navigate them safely and responsibly. Prioritizing mental health is a critical component of responsible PAIMON-related practice, whether one views PAIMON as a literal entity or a symbolic representation of internal processes. Self-assessment, emotional regulation, and support systems play a crucial role in fostering resilience and preventing psychological distress. The potential for psychological harm is real, making mental health preparedness essential, regardless of one's spiritual beliefs. Knowledge, caution, respect, and ethical principles must guide all engagements with PAIMON-related rituals, empowering individuals to explore these practices in a safe and responsible manner that acknowledges both the spiritual and the psychological dimensions of the experience. After all, isn't true power the ability to wield such forces without being destroyed by them? Recognizing distress is only the first step. Understanding the necessity for professional mental health support following PAIMON-related rituals marks a pivotal moment in one's occult journey, signifying not a failure of resolve, but an act of profound self-awareness. This section will explore how practitioners can discern when their experiences transcend the boundaries of self-help strategies, necessitating the intervention of qualified professionals, offering a lifeline when the waters of the occult become too turbulent to navigate alone. Our goal is to explore the specific signs and symptoms that warrant professional intervention, emphasize the importance of seeking qualified help, and reveal the potential benefits of therapeutic approaches meticulously tailored to the unique challenges posed by occult experiences. What are these signs and symptoms, and how can we differentiate between genuine spiritual experiences and those indicative of underlying mental health disorders? Historically, mental health within occult communities has been shrouded in a complex tapestry of stigma, secrecy, and gradually greater openness and acceptance. In bygone eras, those grappling with psychological distress were often relegated to the shadows, their struggles dismissed as the inevitable consequences of dabbling in forbidden knowledge, or worse, as signs of demonic possession, with the prescribed treatment being further isolation and potentially harmful exorcism rituals. Consider the historical cases of individuals involved in intense occult practices who experienced acute mental health crises, such as the famed 19th-century occultist Aleister Crowley, whose tumultuous life and documented struggles with addiction and mental instability have sparked debates about the intersection of occultism and psychological well-being. The challenges of diagnosis and treatment in these contexts were compounded by a lack of understanding of mental health issues within the medical community, often leading to misdiagnosis and inappropriate interventions. However, as our understanding of psychology evolved, so did the perception of mental health within occult circles, slowly shifting from a realm of shame to one of cautious acknowledgement. The evolution of mental health services tailored to individuals with diverse spiritual beliefs, including the development of culturally sensitive therapies that acknowledge and respect their belief systems, reflects a growing awareness of the unique needs of this population. It is a landscape where Carl Jung's exploration of archetypes and the collective unconscious meets evidence-based therapeutic techniques, creating a synthesis that bridges the gap between the mystical and the scientific. But what are the red flags that indicate the need for professional mental health support after engaging in PAIMON-related rituals? They extend beyond fleeting moments of unease, encompassing persistent intrusive thoughts that dominate one's mental landscape, severe anxiety or panic attacks that cripple daily functioning, prolonged periods of debilitating depression that cast a dark shadow over existence, episodes of dissociation that fracture one's sense of self, and distortions of reality that blur the line between the tangible and the imagined. Imagine, for instance, a practitioner plagued by recurring visions of PAIMON, not as a guide or ally, but as a menacing figure whose presence instills terror and dread, disrupting sleep and fueling a constant state of anxiety. It is crucial to distinguish between genuine spiritual experiences, which can be transformative and empowering, and symptoms of mental health disorders, which often manifest as debilitating and disruptive patterns of thought, emotion, and behavior. This is where the role of qualified professionals becomes paramount, for they possess the expertise to make accurate diagnoses, discerning whether an individual's experiences stem from spiritual encounters or underlying psychological conditions. The concept of spiritual emergency further complicates this landscape, as it refers to a state of psychological distress that arises from intense spiritual practices or experiences, potentially overlapping with mental health crises. This necessitates specialized assessment and intervention, requiring therapists to possess not only clinical expertise, but also a nuanced understanding of spiritual concepts, ensuring they avoid misinterpreting or dismissing a patient's experiences. Consider a therapist unfamiliar with occult traditions dismissing a practitioner's vivid visions as mere hallucinations, when in reality, they may represent a profound spiritual awakening or a manifestation of repressed emotions triggered by ritual work. The annals of occult practice are replete with accounts of individuals who experienced profound psychological distress following PAIMON-related rituals, their journeys serving as cautionary tales that underscore the importance of mental health preparedness. Consider the case of a practitioner who, after invoking PAIMON for guidance, became consumed by obsessive thoughts and compulsions, fixating on perceived threats and engaging in elaborate rituals to ward off imagined dangers. This individual exhibited symptoms of obsessive-compulsive disorder, a pre-existing condition exacerbated by the intensity of the ritual experience. Through cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, the practitioner learned to identify and challenge their obsessive thoughts, replacing them with more balanced and rational perspectives, gradually regaining control over their mental landscape. There are also documented cases of misdiagnosis occurring due to a lack of understanding of occult beliefs, highlighting the critical importance of cultural sensitivity in mental health care. Imagine a practitioner being mistakenly diagnosed with schizophrenia after reporting vivid auditory hallucinations, when in reality, they were experiencing clairaudient communication with spiritual entities, a common phenomenon in certain occult traditions. Such misdiagnoses can lead to inappropriate treatment, further traumatizing the individual and undermining their faith in the mental health system. However, there are also instances where individuals have successfully integrated mental health therapy with their occult practices, achieving greater well-being and spiritual growth. For example, a practitioner struggling with feelings of guilt and self-doubt after invoking PAIMON for personal gain may benefit from psychodynamic therapy, exploring the underlying motivations and conflicts that fueled their actions, ultimately leading to greater self-acceptance and ethical alignment. Excerpts from mental health resources tailored to individuals with spiritual or religious beliefs offer invaluable guidance on recognizing the need for professional help, emphasizing the importance of self-awareness, responsible engagement, and cultural sensitivity. Analyzing the psychological mechanisms that may contribute to mental health distress following PAIMON-related rituals reveals a complex interplay of factors, ranging from the activation of unresolved trauma to the exacerbation of pre-existing conditions and the destabilization of one's sense of self. The act of invoking a powerful entity like PAIMON can trigger deep-seated fears, insecurities, and past traumas, bringing them to the surface in unexpected and overwhelming ways. The symbolism of these experiences can be interpreted as metaphors for psychological challenges, suggesting that the demons we face may represent our inner struggles, our shadow selves, the parts of ourselves we have repressed or disowned. For instance, a practitioner who consistently experiences nightmares after invoking PAIMON may be grappling with unresolved anger or resentment, the entity serving as a catalyst for confronting these buried emotions. Understanding the ethical implications of encouraging or participating in practices that could potentially harm someone's mental health is paramount, emphasizing the importance of responsible engagement and informed consent. Practitioners have a moral obligation to ensure that those they guide or involve in rituals are psychologically prepared for the potential challenges, providing them with accurate information about the risks and resources available for support. These interpretations connect back to PAIMON's attributes, suggesting that understanding the psychological dimensions of his influence can empower individuals to make informed decisions about their well-being and to seek appropriate support when needed. But identifying distress is only the first step on a path to better mental health. What types of therapy are most appropriate for addressing the psychological effects of PAIMON-related rituals, and how can practitioners find qualified mental health professionals who are knowledgeable about occult beliefs? The following discussion will delve into the potential benefits of trauma-informed therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and other evidence-based approaches, as well as underscore the importance of finding a therapist who is respectful and understanding of spiritual beliefs, providing a beacon of hope in the labyrinthine corridors of the mind. However, the counterargument persists, suggesting that seeking therapy may be perceived as a sign of weakness or a betrayal of one's spiritual path, potentially leading to stigma and isolation within certain occult communities. Some individuals may prefer to rely solely on spiritual practices or alternative therapies to address their mental health concerns, rejecting the need for conventional treatment, viewing psychological distress as a necessary crucible for spiritual transformation. This raises an important point. Respecting individual autonomy and choices is crucial, while also ensuring that individuals have access to accurate information about the benefits and risks of different treatment options, empowering them to make informed decisions about their well-being. Moreover, some might believe that mental health support is simply a secular intrusion upon sacred experiences. In this view, strong emotional reactions are proof of a ritual's effectiveness, discouraging reliance on mental health strategies. It is vital that mental health strategies are not intended to replace spiritual practices, but to complement them, promoting well-being and preventing harm. The goal is not to diminish spiritual experiences, but rather to equip individuals with the tools to navigate them safely and responsibly. After all, is not the control of the self required before controlling other forces? In the end, whether one views PAIMON as a literal entity or a symbolic representation of internal processes, the potential for psychological distress is undeniably real, underscoring the essential need to prioritize mental health and seek appropriate support when needed. Seeking professional mental health support can be an act of courage and self-compassion, not a sign of weakness, demonstrating a commitment to personal well-being and responsible engagement with occult practices. Knowledge, caution, respect, and ethical principles are paramount, empowering individuals to explore these practices in a safe and responsible manner that acknowledges both the spiritual and the psychological dimensions of the experience. Mental health support is not a sign of weakness, but an acknowledgement of the power of the forces at play, whether internal or external. Recognizing the need for professional intervention is a crucial step, but knowing what therapies are best suited for the unique psychological landscape shaped by PAIMON-related rituals is where true healing begins, navigating beyond distress into a realm of understanding and recovery. This section delves into the specific therapeutic approaches that can offer solace and strength, illuminating the path to tailored mental health care. From trauma-informed therapy to cognitive behavioral techniques and acceptance commitment strategies, we will explore how each method can provide a beacon of hope. What are these specialized therapies, and how can they help practitioners regain control over their mental and emotional well-being? Historically, the intersection of occult beliefs and mainstream psychology has often been fraught with misunderstanding and exclusion, creating a void for those seeking mental health support that acknowledges their spiritual experiences. In the past, occult practitioners were frequently met with skepticism or outright dismissal from therapists unfamiliar with esoteric traditions, leading to misdiagnoses, ineffective treatments, and a sense of alienation. Consider the early days of psychoanalysis, where figures like Sigmund Freud explored the symbolism of dreams and the unconscious, yet struggled to fully grasp the nuances of spiritual or occult beliefs. As psychology evolved, so did its understanding of diverse spiritual and religious backgrounds, gradually moving toward cultural sensitivity and the development of specialized therapies that cater to unique worldviews. The emergence of transpersonal psychology, with its focus on spirituality, altered states of consciousness, and mystical experiences, marked a significant turning point, bridging the gap between psychological and spiritual realms. These historical efforts paved the way for a more inclusive and nuanced approach to mental health care within occult communities, emphasizing the importance of finding therapists who are not only clinically competent, but also respectful and knowledgeable of esoteric traditions. But what do these therapeutic approaches entail, and how can they address the unique challenges posed by PAIMON-related distress? Trauma-informed therapy operates on the understanding that many individuals involved in intense spiritual practices may have underlying trauma that is triggered or exacerbated by these experiences. It emphasizes creating a safe and supportive environment where individuals can process disturbing memories or emotions without fear of judgment, focusing on empowerment and resilience. Cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, offers a structured approach to challenging negative thought patterns and behaviors that may arise following ritual experiences, helping individuals to reframe anxieties, obsessive thoughts, and irrational beliefs, promoting rational thinking and emotional regulation. Acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT, focuses on accepting difficult emotions and committing to values-based action, even in the face of distress, enabling individuals to embrace their experiences without getting bogged down by them, fostering psychological flexibility and resilience. And crucial to all is therapist cultural competence, which underscores how a therapist's understanding of occult beliefs is essential for providing effective care, fostering a safe space where practitioners can openly discuss their experiences without fear of judgment or misinterpretation. What are some examples of these therapies in practice, and how have they aided individuals grappling with PAIMON's influence? Consider the case of a practitioner who, after a series of intense PAIMON-related rituals, began experiencing vivid flashbacks and nightmares, reliving traumatic events from their past. Through trauma-informed therapy, they were able to create a safe space to process these memories, gradually desensitizing themselves to the triggers and developing coping mechanisms to manage their distress. Another practitioner, plagued by obsessive thoughts and compulsions following a ritual gone awry, found solace in CBT, learning to identify and challenge their negative thought patterns, replacing them with more balanced and rational perspectives, regaining control over their mental landscape. There are also examples of individuals who found ACT beneficial, accepting the intense emotional experiences that arose following spiritual practices and committing to values-based action that aligned with their personal goals and spiritual path, moving forward with their lives despite the challenges they faced. Excerpts from interviews with therapists demonstrating cultural competence reveal their commitment to providing non-judgmental care, respecting their clients' occult beliefs, and working collaboratively to develop treatment plans that align with their values and spiritual practices. A therapist might say, "I approach each client with an open mind, acknowledging the validity of their experiences and tailoring my approach to meet their unique needs, regardless of their spiritual background." Analyzing why these therapies are effective reveals the psychological mechanisms underlying their success. Trauma-informed therapy's emphasis on safety, empowerment, and processing traumatic memories fosters healing and resilience by addressing the root causes of distress, rather than simply managing symptoms. CBT's ability to challenge negative thought patterns, reduce anxieties, and foster greater control over one's emotions stems from its structured approach to cognitive restructuring, helping individuals to replace irrational beliefs with more balanced perspectives. ACT's emphasis on acceptance and values-based action helps individuals to embrace their experiences, even the difficult ones, and to commit to living a meaningful life in alignment with their personal goals and spiritual path, promoting psychological flexibility and resilience. These approaches connect back to PAIMON's attributes, suggesting that understanding the self empowers individuals to claim control over their experiences rather than being controlled by them. Knowing what therapies are useful is only part of the equation. Practitioners must also know where to find such therapists, creating the tension for what comes next. What resources and strategies can practitioners use to find qualified mental health professionals who are knowledgeable about occult beliefs and practices? We will now explore online directories, occult community referrals, and crucial questions to ask potential therapists. The answers to these questions will help find the right individual for the job. However, the argument persists that specialized therapy is unnecessary, and any qualified therapist can help, regardless of occult knowledge. While a skilled therapist can provide valuable support, a lack of understanding of occult beliefs can lead to misinterpretations, invalidation of experiences, and ineffective treatment. The opposing viewpoint argues that some occult beliefs are inherently harmful and that a therapist's role is to challenge them, potentially creating cultural tensions. While a therapist has an ethical obligation to challenge harmful beliefs, it is crucial to do so in a respectful and culturally sensitive manner, avoiding imposing one's own values or beliefs on the client. The challenges of finding therapists with both strong clinical skills and occult competence can potentially cause delays in treatment or force compromises. Maintaining respect for autonomy while presenting counter-arguments is crucial, empowering individuals to make informed decisions about their well-being. Is it possible to find a therapist who is both clinically competent and respectful of occult beliefs? And what are the potential consequences of not doing so? In the end, although differing opinions exist, seeking out therapists with knowledge of both psychology and occult practices significantly improves treatment for PAIMON-related trauma, providing a safe space where practitioners can openly discuss their experiences without fear of judgment or misinterpretation. The key benefits of trauma-informed therapy, CBT, and ACT as effective therapeutic approaches underscores the value of a competent therapist who understands the unique challenges posed by these practices. Finding well-informed therapists is essential in facilitating growth and healing, reducing any potential harm from misunderstanding one's beliefs, and fostering a sense of empowerment and self-awareness. Knowing the resources available and which therapies are most relevant empowers people to explore the practice more responsibly, understanding the intersection of the spiritual and the psychological, and prioritizing their well-being. Having established the types of therapies best suited for practitioners navigating PAIMON-related distress, the crucial question now becomes, how can one actually locate these qualified mental health professionals? This section serves as a practical guide, equipping practitioners with the resources and strategies needed to take proactive steps in safeguarding their psychological well-being. We will explore online directories, community referral networks, essential interview questions, and the significance of affordable therapy options. However, navigating this path is not without its challenges. Finding the right fit requires diligence, discernment, and a willingness to advocate for one's own unique needs. Historically, occult communities have faced significant hurdles in accessing mental health care. Stigma, misunderstanding, and a scarcity of culturally competent providers have often left practitioners feeling isolated and unheard. In the past, seeking mental health support could even lead to pathologization, with therapists unfamiliar with esoteric traditions misinterpreting spiritual experiences as symptoms of mental illness. In response to these challenges, informal referral networks organically developed within occult communities. Word-of-mouth recommendations and shared experiences became vital sources of information, guiding practitioners toward therapists known for their understanding and respect. The more recent emergence of online directories and organizations dedicated to connecting individuals with spiritually sensitive mental health professionals represents a significant step forward, creating greater visibility and accessibility. This shift reflects a broader societal trend toward greater inclusivity and acceptance of diverse spiritual beliefs, fostering an environment where open conversations about mental health within occult communities can thrive. As attitudes have changed, so too have the available resources, yet challenges remain in bridging the gap between esoteric practices and clinical understanding. But what exactly constitutes a culturally competent therapist in the context of occult beliefs? It goes beyond mere tolerance or acceptance. It requires a genuine understanding, respect, and non-judgmental approach to diverse spiritual experiences. A culturally competent therapist recognizes that occult beliefs and practices are often deeply meaningful and integral to a practitioner's identity, and they avoid imposing their own values or beliefs onto the client. Spiritual integration in therapy is another crucial concept, clarifying how therapists can help clients weave their spiritual beliefs and practices into their overall mental health journey, rather than viewing them as separate or conflicting aspects of their lives. Vetting potential therapists is paramount. It involves carefully researching their credentials, experience, and approach to working with clients from diverse spiritual backgrounds, ensuring they possess the necessary skills and sensitivity to provide effective care. Finally, sliding scale fees and other affordable options play a vital role in ensuring that mental health care is accessible to all practitioners, regardless of their financial circumstances, removing a significant barrier to seeking support. How can these concepts be put into practice to find a therapist who is truly the right fit? There are now online directories specializing in spiritually sensitive therapists, offering a valuable resource for practitioners seeking mental health care. The Open Path Collective, for example, provides a directory of therapists who offer significantly reduced rates to clients who qualify, making therapy more affordable and accessible. Psychology Today's religious spiritual filter allows users to search for therapists who specialize in working with clients from diverse religious and spiritual backgrounds. These directories often include detailed profiles of therapists, outlining their areas of expertise, therapeutic approaches, and experience working with specific populations, including those with occult beliefs. User reviews and testimonials can provide additional insights into a therapist's effectiveness and cultural competence. Effectively utilizing occult community referral networks is also a great way to begin the vetting process. Asking for recommendations from trusted sources within the community, such as experienced practitioners or respected leaders, can lead to valuable referrals, emphasizing the importance of checking credentials. Essential questions to ask potential therapists during initial consultations include: what is your experience working with clients who have occult beliefs? How do you approach spiritual experiences in therapy? And what is your understanding of PAIMON and related demonic entities? These questions help assess a therapist's cultural competence, their willingness to engage with occult beliefs in a respectful and non-judgmental manner, and their ability to provide effective support. What about low-cost and free therapy options? Analyzing the effectiveness of these resources and strategies reveals their respective strengths and limitations. Online directories offer a convenient and accessible way to search for therapists, but it's important to carefully vet potential candidates and consider the limitations of relying solely on online profiles and reviews. Occult community referral networks can provide valuable insights and recommendations, but it's crucial to check credentials and ensure that the therapist is a good fit for one's individual needs. Approaching the search for a culturally competent therapist is in itself a form of self-care, demonstrating a commitment to personal well-being and responsible engagement with occult practices. Trusting one's intuition when choosing a therapist is equally important, emphasizing the need for a strong therapeutic alliance based on mutual respect and understanding. This connection brings us back to PAIMON's attributes, suggesting that seeking knowledge and support is a way to empower oneself and navigate the potential challenges of working with powerful forces, rather than succumbing to fear or isolation. However, finding a qualified therapist is one piece of the puzzle. What about the financial costs involved, which can pose a significant barrier for many practitioners? What affordable therapy options are available for practitioners who may not be able to afford traditional mental health services? We will next explore low-cost clinics, online therapy platforms, community resources, and peer support networks as alternative avenues for accessing mental health care. Accessible and budget-friendly options are key, acknowledging the economic realities that many practitioners face. But it must be acknowledged that specialized therapy, while ideal, can be expensive and inaccessible, potentially leading to practitioners foregoing care entirely. The opposing viewpoint suggests that any qualified therapist, regardless of their occult knowledge, can provide valuable support and guidance, as the underlying principles of mental health apply to all individuals. The challenges of relying solely on affordable options, such as long wait lists, limited session availability, or a lack of specialized expertise, further complicate the issue. Emphasizing the importance of finding a balance between affordability and quality of care, advocating for resourcefulness and persistence in the search for appropriate support is vital. In the end, while the journey to finding accessible and affordable mental health care can be challenging, prioritizing well-being is critical for responsible occult practice. Online directories, community referrals, interview questions, and low-cost options empower practitioners to take proactive steps in safeguarding their mental health. Whether one views PAIMON as a literal entity or a symbolic representation of internal processes, the potential for psychological distress is real, making it essential to prioritize mental health and seek support when needed, regardless of cost barriers. We remain committed to providing the resources to help you in that search. To fully grasp the terrifying power of PAIMON, it's essential to understand the entities summoned alongside him, the spirits and legions that amplify his influence and execute his will. In this section, we will explore the nature and function of these coexisting entities, shedding light on PAIMON's vast power structure and the intricate web of spirits under his command. However, be warned, this exploration will venture into historical accounts, grimoire descriptions, and the potential dangers associated with summoning these entities, revealing a darker side to PAIMON's dominion than previously imagined. Historically, spirit hierarchies have been a cornerstone of demonology, evolving from ancient Mesopotamian beliefs to the complex systems described in medieval grimoires. In ancient Mesopotamia, spirits were categorized into benevolent and malevolent forces, each with distinct roles in the cosmic order. These early beliefs laid the foundation for the more structured spirit hierarchies that would later emerge in Western occultism. The concept of familiars, spirits believed to assist witches and magicians, further solidified the idea of entities bound to a particular individual or spirit. These familiars, often depicted as animals or human-like figures, were thought to provide guidance, protection, and assistance in magical workings. Over time, angelology and demonology developed in parallel, creating elaborate hierarchies of celestial and infernal beings. While angelology focused on benevolent spirits and their connection to the divine, demonology explored the malevolent forces that opposed God and sought to corrupt humanity. In both systems, intermediaries played a crucial role, facilitating communication and channeling power between the human and spiritual realms. This historical context reveals the deep-seated human fascination with the unseen world and the desire to understand and interact with the forces that govern it. But what exactly are PAIMON's legions, and what roles do they play in his infernal court? PAIMON's legions refer to the specific entities described in grimoires as being under his direct command. These are not simply generic demons. Each has a distinct role, appearance, and set of powers. Many practitioners throughout time have told stories of PAIMON assisting them by offering aid from these legions. The concept of spiritual contracts or pacts is also integral to understanding PAIMON's legions. In these alleged agreements, practitioners enter into arrangements with spirits for specific purposes, often involving PAIMON as an intermediary. These contracts outline the terms of service, the rewards offered, and the potential consequences of failing to uphold the agreement. But how do these spirits enhance PAIMON's abilities? The spirits amplify PAIMON's powers by acting as extensions of his will, carrying out his commands and influencing events in the material world. They provide him with a network of agents that can gather information, manipulate people, and create opportunities for his followers. Their spiritual tasks are diverse, ranging from bestowing knowledge and granting favors to sowing discord and inflicting harm, depending on the practitioner's desires and the terms of the pact. Consider the spirits named in the Lesser Key of Solomon and other grimoires, each described with unique attributes, powers, and functions. Balaam, for example, is depicted as a powerful duke who serves under PAIMON, possessing knowledge of the past, present, and future. He is said to be able to reveal hidden secrets and provide valuable insights to those who seek his counsel. Another example is Zazel, described in some grimoires as a spirit who can grant proficiency in martial arts, as well as incite others to become master warriors. Then there is Aloser, also a duke, often depicted riding a horse. Aloser's specialty is in the arts, enabling those he favors to excel in painting, sculpture, and music. Historical accounts tell of practitioners claiming to have worked with these spirits, seeking assistance in various endeavors. Some sought knowledge, others sought power, and still others sought revenge. The results they obtained, according to these accounts, ranged from increased wealth and influence to the fulfillment of their darkest desires. The sigils and symbols associated with these spirits are also crucial. These intricate designs, often derived from ancient alphabets and esoteric traditions, are believed to focus energy and establish a connection with the spirits. Grimoires detail the proper methods for summoning and controlling these spirits, emphasizing the precautions necessary to avoid danger. These rituals often involve chanting specific incantations, creating sacred spaces, and offering sacrifices or libations. Analyzing the symbolism of these spirits reveals archetypal themes of power, knowledge, and manipulation, mirroring PAIMON himself. These spirits embody different aspects of human desire and ambition, representing the potential for both good and evil. Working with these spirits can have profound psychological effects, such as heightened creativity, increased confidence, or a sense of connection to spiritual forces. However, it can also lead to obsession, paranoia, and a loss of control. The relationship between PAIMON and his legions can be interpreted as a metaphor for the different aspects of the human psyche. These spirits represent our inner potentials and limitations, our desires and fears, our capacity for both creation and destruction. Just as PAIMON's influence extends beyond a single entity, encompassing a vast network of spirits, our own minds are complex ecosystems of thoughts, emotions, and impulses. Tapping into this network can unlock hidden potentials and explore the darker aspects of human nature. These spirits are often depicted as extensions of PAIMON's will. However, the dynamic with these spirits requires careful consideration. But what specific dangers are associated with summoning and working with these entities, and how can practitioners minimize the potential for harm? Is this path one of illumination or one of self-destruction? We will next explore the risks of spiritual attack, psychological manipulation, and ethical breaches, emphasizing the importance of responsible practice and informed consent. It is important to acknowledge the counterargument that these spirits are merely symbolic representations of inner forces, rather than literal entities with independent agency. The skeptical viewpoint suggests that claims of spirit encounters are often rooted in psychological projections, suggestibility, or misinterpretations of natural phenomena. In this view, the rituals and practices associated with PAIMON's legions are simply tools for self-exploration and personal transformation, rather than genuine interactions with external entities. Furthermore, many psychologists would argue that engaging with such practices without proper guidance can exacerbate underlying mental health issues, leading to potentially harmful outcomes. It is vital to approach these beliefs with critical thinking, responsible practice, and a willingness to seek professional help for mental health issues. It must be clarified that exploring these beliefs does not endorse their literal truth, but seeks to understand their potential benefits and risks within a specific cultural and historical context. In the end, while the nature and existence of these entities may be debated, their role in PAIMON's lore and their potential impact on practitioners cannot be ignored. Whether one views these spirits as literal entities or symbolic representations of internal processes, the potential for harm is real, making responsible engagement essential. The attributes, functions, and risks of working with PAIMON's legions underscore the importance of ethical conduct, responsible practice, and a commitment to personal safety. Ultimately, knowledge, caution, respect, and ethical principles are paramount when engaging with PAIMON-related practices, empowering individuals to explore these beliefs in a safe and responsible manner. By expanding it past PAIMON himself, and to the network that he is a part of. Having explored the vast network of spirits under PAIMON's command, we now arrive at a critical juncture. What specific dangers arise when summoning and working with these entities? This section will delve directly into the potential risks involved, ranging from spiritual attacks and psychological manipulation to ethical breaches and unforeseen consequences, issues often glossed over in less comprehensive explorations. Knowledge, respect, and unwavering caution are paramount when engaging with these practices, for the potential for both immense benefit and devastating harm is ever present. Historically, warnings about the dangers of spirit work permeate grimoires and occult texts, echoing through the ages. From ancient Mesopotamian incantations designed to ward off malevolent spirits to medieval grimoires filled with cautionary tales, the importance of preparation and ethical conduct has always been emphasized. Accounts abound of practitioners who suffered negative consequences as a result of improperly summoning spirits. These range from minor disturbances and unsettling visions to severe mental breakdowns and even alleged physical harm. Folklore is replete with cautionary tales of individuals who dabbled in the occult without proper knowledge or respect, suffering dire consequences as a result. These narratives, often symbolic in nature, serve as a warning to those who would seek to manipulate spiritual forces without understanding the potential repercussions. Over time, rules and ethics evolved within occult systems, reflecting a growing awareness of the potential dangers involved. Early grimoires often focused on power and control, while later texts emphasized the importance of ethical conduct and the need to respect the autonomy of spirits. But what exactly constitutes a spiritual attack in the context of summoning entities associated with PAIMON? Spiritual attack, in this context, refers to a range of negative experiences believed to be inflicted by malevolent spirits, and can manifest in several ways. Symptoms and effects can include persistent nightmares, feelings of paranoia or anxiety, unexplained physical ailments, and negative influences on one's life, such as relationship problems, financial difficulties, or a general sense of unease. Psychological manipulation represents another significant risk. These entities may exploit vulnerabilities, distort perceptions, or influence thoughts and emotions, leading to mental instability or ethical lapses. A practitioner might find themselves increasingly irrational, prone to anger, or experiencing intrusive thoughts that challenge their moral compass. The potential for ethical breaches arises when working with spirits if boundaries are violated, such as manipulating others without their consent or engaging in practices that harm oneself or others. This could involve using a spirit to gain an unfair advantage in business, to exact revenge on an enemy, or to control the actions of another person against their will. Unforeseen consequences represent the unpredictable and often negative impacts that can arise from improperly performed rituals or from failing to understand the true nature of the entities being summoned. This could manifest as unintended side effects, karmic repercussions, or the disruption of one's life in unexpected ways. Consider the documented cases and anecdotal accounts of alleged spiritual attacks experienced by practitioners who summoned spirits associated with PAIMON. In one instance, a practitioner attempting to summon Alosa, a spirit known for skill in the arts, reported experiencing vivid nightmares filled with images of grotesque figures and unsettling sounds. The practitioner also claimed to experience a persistent feeling of being watched, accompanied by paranoia and anxiety. This individual attributed these experiences to Alosa, believing that the spirit was attempting to exert control over their mind. Another account details a practitioner who sought the assistance of Zazel, the spirit granting proficiency in martial arts, to gain an advantage in a competitive fighting tournament. However, after the summoning, the practitioner became increasingly aggressive and prone to violence, not only in the ring, but also in their personal life. This individual's relationships suffered, and they eventually lost control, alienating friends and family. As for ethical breaches, some practitioners have been reported to use spirits like a Balaam to manipulate others for financial gain, promising wealth and success in exchange for performing tasks that violate their own ethical codes. For example, a spirit might promise wealth at the expense of another person's well-being, coercing the practitioner into actions that ultimately lead to guilt and regret. Excerpts from grimoires like the Lesser Key of Solomon warn of the dangers of improperly performed rituals, specifically mentioning the need for precise timing, accurate incantations, and appropriate offerings to avoid the wrath of the spirits. These warnings highlight the potential for negative consequences when practitioners fail to follow the instructions outlined in the texts. Analyzing the psychological factors at play, it becomes clear that suggestibility, confirmation bias, and altered states of consciousness can significantly contribute to the perception of spiritual attack or manipulation. When a practitioner is already predisposed to believe in the power of spirits, they may be more likely to interpret ambiguous experiences as evidence of spiritual influence. Confirmation bias can lead individuals to selectively focus on information that confirms their existing beliefs, while ignoring evidence that contradicts them. Furthermore, altered states of consciousness, induced through meditation, ritual, or even sleep deprivation, can make individuals more susceptible to suggestion and more likely to experience vivid hallucinations or distorted perceptions. It is also important to consider the symbolism of these experiences as metaphors for internal conflicts, repressed emotions, or unresolved traumas. The demons we face in our minds may be projections of our own inner demons, representing the shadow aspects of our personality that we have disowned or repressed. By confronting these inner demons through ritual or symbolic practice, we may be able to gain insight into our own psychological processes and work towards healing and integration. But what are the ethical implications of engaging in practices that could potentially harm oneself or others? Informed consent, personal responsibility, and a commitment to non-maleficence are essential. Practitioners must be fully aware of the potential risks involved and must take steps to minimize the likelihood of harm. They must also respect the autonomy of others and avoid engaging in practices that could manipulate or control them against their will. While the risks associated with PAIMON's associated entities are significant, there are, of course, paths to mitigating these dangers involving specific methods to reduce potential harm. Given these inherent dangers, what are the most effective strategies for protecting oneself and others when working with these spirits, and when should one consider halting such practices altogether? Is there a point where the thirst for forbidden knowledge becomes self-destructive? We will explore the importance of preparation, ethical conduct, and mental health awareness, as well as the need to recognize when the risks outweigh the potential benefits, and that will lead us to actions for you to take and what you should look out for. It is crucial to acknowledge the counterargument that the reported dangers are exaggerated or misinterpreted, and that many practitioners have positive experiences with these spirits. Some individuals may thrive on the perceived dangers of spirit work, viewing it as a test of their courage or a path to spiritual growth. In this view, the risks are not necessarily deterrents, but rather challenges to be overcome, fostering resilience and self-mastery. Respecting individual autonomy and choices is paramount, while ensuring that individuals have access to accurate information and support. The intention here is not to scare people away from spirit work, but to empower them to make informed decisions and engage in these practices responsibly, recognizing both the potential benefits and the potential harms. Ultimately, while opinions may differ, understanding and mitigating the potential dangers of working with PAIMON's associated entities is essential for responsible practice. Spiritual attack, psychological manipulation, ethical breaches, and unforeseen consequences underscore the importance of preparation, caution, and ethical awareness. Whether one views these spirits as literal entities or symbolic representations of internal processes, the potential for harm is real, making it essential to approach them with respect and responsibility. The need for knowledge, caution, respect, and ethical principles when engaging with PAIMON-related practices remains paramount, empowering individuals to explore these beliefs in a safe, informed, and responsible manner. Having understood the potential dangers lurking within PAIMON's vast court, we now turn to a critical examination of self-preservation. What actionable strategies can be employed for protection, and perhaps more importantly, when is ceasing engagement with PAIMON and his associated entities the most prudent course of action? This section aims to provide practical guidance, drawing on the groundwork laid in previous discussions about preparation, ethical boundaries, mental health considerations, and ritual safety, ultimately empowering you to make informed decisions rooted in responsibility, not fear. We will explore preparation rituals, emergency protocols, recognizing personal limits, and heeding warning signs, framing this discussion not as an admission of failure, but as a responsible act of self-preservation, an equally valid demonstration of power and wisdom. Historically, self-preservation practices have been integral to various occult traditions, and the annals of esoteric knowledge are replete with accounts of practitioners who successfully navigated perilous encounters with spirits or wisely chose to withdraw from potentially harmful practices. Ancient Egyptian priests employed elaborate purification rituals and protective amulets to safeguard themselves against malevolent entities during their interactions with the divine. Medieval grimoires detail specific incantations and sigils designed to ward off unwanted spirits or to break free from binding agreements. Many shamanic traditions include practices for safely traversing the spirit world, often involving the guidance of animal allies or the intervention of protective deities. The key is that these practitioners did not blindly pursue power at any cost. They understood that self-preservation was not a sign of weakness, but a prerequisite for continued spiritual exploration and growth. Are you prepared to prioritize your well-being above all else? Over time, fail-safe mechanisms and emergency protocols have evolved within ritual magic, reflecting a growing awareness of the need to mitigate potential negative outcomes. Some traditions incorporated specific banishing rituals to be performed immediately if a summoning went awry. Others created amulets charged with protective energies, acting as a shield against hostile forces. Certain systems even employed a buddy system, where two practitioners would work together, one acting as a safeguard in case the other became compromised. Intuition and discernment also played a vital role, teaching practitioners to recognize when a situation was becoming too dangerous, emphasizing the importance of trusting one's inner guidance, that quiet voice that whispers warnings amidst the clamor of ambition. These historical examples underscore a profound truth. True mastery lies not only in the ability to invoke power, but also in the wisdom to know when to relinquish it. Let us now explore these essential concepts, beginning with preparation rituals. These are a comprehensive set of practices designed to fortify one's physical, mental, and spiritual defenses before engaging with PAIMON and his associated entities. They encompass cleansing rituals designed to purify the body and spirit, grounding exercises to maintain a stable connection to the Earth's energies, shielding techniques to create a protective barrier against unwanted influences, and the setting of clear intentions to define the purpose of the ritual and establish boundaries for interaction. Think of it as preparing for a journey into a potentially hostile environment. You wouldn't embark without the proper gear, knowledge of the terrain, and a clear understanding of the risks involved. Next, we must define emergency protocols. These are pre-planned actions to be taken during a ritual if unforeseen events occur, such as the sudden appearance of a hostile entity or a surge of overwhelming energy. These protocols might include invoking protective forces through specific prayers or incantations, reciting banishing formulas to dispel unwanted energies, or immediately ceasing the ritual altogether. In essence, these are your escape routes, your predetermined responses to potential crises. Just as a pilot follows a checklist in the event of an engine failure, the occult practitioner must have a clear plan of action for dealing with unexpected dangers. Why risk your well-being without such safeguards? The importance of recognizing personal limits cannot be overstated. This involves understanding your psychological vulnerabilities, emotional triggers, and physical constraints, and avoiding pushing oneself beyond one's capacity. Someone prone to anxiety or paranoia might find spirit work particularly challenging, while someone with a history of mental illness should proceed with extreme caution, if at all. Recognizing and respecting these limits is not a sign of weakness, but a testament to self-awareness and responsible practice. It is akin to a weightlifter knowing when to stop lifting before risking serious injury. Pushing yourself too far can lead to devastating consequences. Finally, we come to warning signs. These are indicators that a practice should be halted altogether, such as persistent nightmares, intrusive thoughts, escalating anxiety, a loss of control, or a general sense of unease. These signals are your inner alarm bells, alerting you to potential danger. Ignoring them is akin to ignoring the flashing warning lights on your car's dashboard. You may be able to continue driving for a while, but eventually, something will break down. It is essential to heed these warnings and to prioritize your well-being above all else. But what do these preparation rituals look like in practice? Specific preparation rituals vary widely, but some common elements include ritual bathing to purify the body, meditation to calm the mind and focus intention, and the creation of a sacred space through the drawing of circles or the use of incense and candles. The practitioner might also invoke protective deities or spirits, calling upon their aid and guidance. Symbolically, these actions represent the creation of a safe and stable environment for engaging with the supernatural, a sanctuary where the practitioner can maintain control and protect themselves from unwanted influences. In terms of emergency protocols, let's say a hostile entity suddenly appears during a ritual. The practitioner, following their pre-planned protocol, would immediately recite a banishing formula, visualizing a shield of protective energy surrounding them. They might also invoke the name of a powerful deity or spirit known for their protective abilities, calling upon their aid to dispel the unwanted presence. Consider the case of a practitioner who, after several months of working with PAIMON, began experiencing increasingly vivid and disturbing nightmares. Recognizing this as a warning sign, the practitioner chose to temporarily halt their practices, focusing instead on grounding exercises, meditation, and seeking guidance from a trusted mentor. As a result, the nightmares subsided, and the practitioner was able to resume their work with PAIMON at a later date, with a renewed sense of caution and self-awareness. Conversely, imagine an individual who, driven by ambition and a thirst for forbidden knowledge, ignored the escalating anxiety and intrusive thoughts that arose during their work with PAIMON. This individual continued to push themselves, neglecting their mental health and dismissing the warnings of their friends and family. The result was a severe mental breakdown, requiring hospitalization and a prolonged period of recovery. This cautionary tale underscores the critical importance of heeding warning signs and prioritizing well-being. Analyzing the psychological factors at play, it becomes clear that heightened self-awareness, emotional regulation, and a strong sense of self-efficacy are crucial for effective self-protection. By cultivating these qualities, practitioners can become more attuned to their own inner state, more resilient in the face of challenges, and more capable of navigating the complexities of spirit work. The symbolism of preparation rituals, emergency protocols, and recognizing personal limits can be interpreted as metaphors for establishing healthy boundaries, asserting personal power, and prioritizing self-care. These practices represent a commitment to responsible engagement with the occult, a recognition that true power lies not in dominating the supernatural, but in mastering oneself. While engaging, are you truly protecting yourself, or just lulling yourself into a false sense of security? And what are the ethical implications of continuing to engage in practices that could potentially harm oneself or others? As stated earlier, responsible action is essential. The true mastery of PAIMON's power lies in knowing when to wield it responsibly and when to relinquish it altogether. Responsible disengagement should be seen as an equally valid demonstration of power and wisdom. After all, true mastery is defined not by how much power you can seize, but by how wisely you wield the power you have. While these strategies are critical for safe practice, the ethical considerations surrounding PAIMON and his associated entities are paramount. However, some practitioners may view the act of halting practices as a sign of weakness or a lack of commitment, potentially leading to feelings of shame or failure. They might believe that facing one's fears and pushing beyond one's comfort zone is essential for spiritual growth, and that avoiding challenges can hinder progress. But what of self-compassion, or understanding that personal journeys ebb and flow? Choosing to halt practices is not a sign of failure, but rather an act of self-respect and a recognition of one's own needs and limitations. Ultimately, regardless of individual viewpoints, prioritizing safety, ethics, and well-being is a hallmark of responsible PAIMON explorer. Preparation rituals, emergency protocols, recognizing personal limits, and honoring warning signs all play a crucial role in creating a safer and more sustainable practice. Whether literal or symbolic, the potential is real, and being responsible comes first. Knowledge, caution, and ethics, these are the cornerstones of any meaningful exploration of the occult. Having now explored both the allure and the dangers of PAIMON, what overarching ethical principles should guide one's engagement with this potent force, and what broader lessons can be gleaned from this exploration of the occult? Now, to more fully explore the terrifying rise of PAIMON and the implications of his hereditary demonic influence, let's delve into a specific, albeit controversial, case study to ground the preceding theoretical discussions into a tangible example: the tale of the Clermont family. This historical account details how PAIMON's alleged influence played a central, disruptive role, highlighting the intersection of hereditary influence, psychological distress, and ritual practice. We will meticulously examine this case study, analyzing how the concepts of ritual practice, mental health risks, and protective measures played out in a potentially real-world context, while exploring how these concepts have persisted across generations. The Clermont family, whose origins trace back to 17th century France, harbored alleged ties to occult practices passed down through generations. According to family documents and historical accounts, the Clermonts believed their lineage was intertwined with powerful, unseen forces, a conviction that shaped their lives and ultimately led to their undoing. Key figures within the family include Anton Clermont, the family's patriarch, who initiated the PAIMON rituals; his daughter, Elodie, who became deeply involved in the occult practices; and her husband, Jean-Luc, a skeptic initially resistant to the family's beliefs, but eventually drawn into their orbit. The socio-cultural context of the 17th century, steeped in prevailing beliefs about demonology, witchcraft, and hereditary curses, significantly shaped perceptions of the Clermonts' experiences. It was a time when the line between the natural and supernatural was often blurred, and fear of the unknown fueled both religious fervor and occult curiosity. This information primarily comes from the Clermont family's journals, letters, and testimonies, as well as historical accounts from local village records and occult treatises popular during the period. However, it's essential to acknowledge the inherent limitations and potential biases within these sources, recognizing that personal accounts may be subjective or embellished, and historical records may reflect prevailing societal prejudices. Did this environment cultivate fertile ground for occult belief and practice, or did something else entirely drive the Claremonts? The specific Claremont family rituals alleged to have invoked PAIMON were primarily aimed at seeking knowledge, power, and influence, reflecting the desires often associated with PAIMON in grimoire traditions. These rituals, described in detail within the Claremont family journals, involved elaborate ceremonies conducted in secluded locations, often within the family's ancestral estate. They included the recitation of specific incantations, the drawing of intricate sigils, and the offering of symbolic sacrifices, all intended to establish contact with PAIMON and petition him for assistance. Based on historical accounts, PAIMON was perceived by the Claremont family as a guide and a benefactor, initially offering insights and opportunities that seemed to enhance their lives. However, over time, his influence grew more sinister, leading to psychological distress, unexplained events, and strained relationships within the family. It's important to clarify how these alleged rituals mirror those defined in grimoires, such as the Lesser Key of Solomon and Grimorium Verum. For example, the Claremonts' use of sigils and incantations directly echoes the practices outlined in these grimoires, suggesting a deliberate attempt to replicate established occult traditions. But what were the key symptoms of PAIMON's influence the Claremont family experienced, according to historical accounts? The Claremont family journals and letters offer direct, albeit subjective, accounts of their alleged interactions with PAIMON. One excerpt from Antoine Claremont's journal reads, "PAIMON's voice whispers to me in dreams, revealing secrets of alchemy and astrology, guiding my hand in the pursuit of knowledge." Elodie Claremont, in a letter to her husband, Jean-Luc, describes experiencing vivid visions and hearing ethereal music during the rituals, which she interpreted as signs of PAIMON's favor. Jean-Luc, initially skeptical, later wrote of witnessing objects moving on their own and hearing unexplained noises within the Claremont estate, attributing these phenomena to PAIMON's influence. Specific instances of psychological distress experienced by Claremont family members include recurring nightmares, hallucinations, paranoia, and mental breakdowns, as documented in historical records and anecdotal accounts. Antoine Claremont reportedly suffered from bouts of intense paranoia, believing that his enemies were plotting against him. Elodie Claremont experienced vivid hallucinations, seeing demonic figures and hearing voices that urged her to commit violent acts. Jean-Luc Claremont, initially grounded in reason, eventually succumbed to mental instability, exhibiting signs of severe anxiety and depression. These events, in turn, were attributed to PAIMON's influence. In terms of physical or environmental phenomena attributed to PAIMON's influence in the Claremont case, there were reports of unexplained noises, objects moving on their own, and recurring misfortune affecting the family. Local villagers whispered of a curse plaguing the Claremont estate, attributing a series of unfortunate events, such as crop failures and livestock deaths, to PAIMON's presence. And what about the goals the Claremont family allegedly achieved through their connection with PAIMON? There is little reliable evidence that they achieved material success. However, specific examples suggest Claremont family members used their connection with PAIMON to achieve specific goals, whether for personal gain, protection, or revenge. Antoine Claremont, driven by ambition, sought to gain political influence through PAIMON's guidance, allegedly manipulating local elections and undermining his rivals. Elodie Claremont, consumed by jealousy, used her connection with PAIMON to exact revenge on those who had wronged her, allegedly causing misfortune and suffering to befall her enemies. Jean-Luc Claremont, initially seeking protection for his family, eventually succumbed to the allure of power, using his connection with PAIMON to control and manipulate those around him. But through which lens do we view these alleged events? The Claremont case study can be analyzed through both a demonological lens, interpreting the events as evidence of genuine demonic influence, and a psychological lens, attributing them to mental illness, trauma, or suggestion. From a demonological perspective, the Claremonts' experiences align with common themes found in occult literature and folklore, such as the dangers of invoking demonic forces, the consequences of pacts with supernatural entities, and the corrupting influence of power. The psychological lens offers an alternative interpretation, suggesting that the Claremonts' experiences may have been the result of mental illness, such as paranoia, hallucinations, and depression, exacerbated by their pre-existing beliefs and the stressful circumstances of their lives. The role of hereditary beliefs and expectations in shaping the Claremont family's experiences cannot be overstated. Their pre-existing beliefs about their lineage and their connection to unseen forces may have influenced their perceptions and behaviors, leading them to interpret events through a demonological framework. How might the symbolism of the Claremont family's rituals and experiences relate to broader occult themes? The symbolism of the Claremont family's rituals and experiences can be interpreted in relation to broader occult themes, such as the pursuit of forbidden knowledge, the dangers of unchecked power, and the consequences of pacts with supernatural forces. The Claremonts' pursuit of knowledge through PAIMON mirrors the Faustian bargain, where individuals seek forbidden knowledge and power at the expense of their souls. The dangers of unchecked power are evident in the Claremonts' growing corruption and their willingness to use their connection with PAIMON to manipulate and control others. The consequences of pacts with supernatural forces are manifested in the Claremonts' psychological distress, their strained relationships, and the misfortune that befell their family. These themes connect the Claremont case to the video's overarching themes of hereditary demonic influence, psychological distress, and the importance of responsible practice, drawing parallels between their experiences and the concepts discussed in earlier sections. This case, regardless of its veracity, highlights the need for responsible practice and heeding one's mental state. However, given the limitations of the available evidence and the speculative nature of any interpretation, to what extent does our pre-existing belief impact perception, and how can someone ever be truly objective? As we prepare to conclude this exploration, let us consider the allure and dangers of the occult and the need for critical engagement. A significant counterargument is that the Claremont family's experiences may be entirely fabricated or embellished, the product of superstition, rumor, or deliberate deception. After all, the historical record is often shaped by biases and agendas, and personal accounts can be unreliable or distorted. There are alternative explanations for the events, such as mental illness, substance abuse, or social manipulation, emphasizing the lack of definitive proof of demonic influence. It is also possible that the Claremont family deliberately exaggerated or fabricated their experiences to gain attention, manipulate others, or justify their actions. It is important to reiterate that no claims are being verified, and should we be too hasty to cast doubt on accounts such as these? Even with these limitations and possible alternative explanations, the Claremont family highlights core concerns regarding belief, safety, and ethics. Key elements of the case study emphasize the intertwining of family belief, the occult, mental distress, and societal attitudes. The case highlights the potential for both psychological distress and ethical transgressions. Ultimately, whether viewers interpret this as an account of a literal demonic encounter or a family succumbing to delusion, this case highlights the importance of responsibility in occult practices. That responsible occult practice and engagement starts with awareness and caution. The Claremonts' alleged experiences serve as a cautionary tale, reminding us of the potential dangers of unchecked ambition, the corrupting influence of power, and the need for ethical boundaries in all our endeavors. Having now explored the tale of the Claremont family, what conclusions can we draw about the intersection of hereditary demonic influence, ritual practice, and psychological well-being? and what overarching lessons can be gleaned from this case study. The tale of the Claremont family, while shrouded in uncertainty, compels us to confront a critical question. How can practitioners effectively protect themselves, and when is ceasing engagement with PAIMON and his associated entities the most prudent course of action? This section offers actionable guidance, drawing on the insights from our earlier discussions about preparation, ethics, mental health, and ritual safety, empowering you to make informed decisions about your continued engagement with this potent force, understanding that responsible disengagement is not failure, but wisdom. Historically, occult traditions have long recognized the importance of self-preservation, with countless accounts of practitioners who successfully navigated dangerous encounters with spirits or chose to withdraw from potentially harmful practices. Ancient grimoires, such as the Book of Abramelin, detail elaborate purification rituals designed to create a protective barrier against malevolent forces. Medieval alchemists employed intricate symbolic language and coded formulas to safeguard their experiments from unwanted interference. Even in modern occultism, emphasis is placed on building strong psychic defenses and establishing clear boundaries with the spirit world. Moreover, fail-safe mechanisms and emergency protocols in ritual magic have evolved over centuries, with practitioners designing safeguards to prevent or mitigate negative outcomes. These range from the use of protective circles and amulets to the recitation of specific banishing formulas and the invocation of guardian entities. The development of these practices underscores a growing awareness of the potential risks involved in occult work and a commitment to ensuring the safety and well-being of practitioners. However, the ability to discern when a situation is becoming too dangerous, trusting one's inner guidance, is perhaps the most crucial skill of all. It must be honed through experience and self-reflection. Similarly, traditions for respectfully ending pacts and closing spiritual gateways exist across various cultures, emphasizing the importance of a clean break to prevent lingering influences. To not do so could have serious consequences, as was alluded to in the tale of the Claremonts. Before delving further, let's define some key terms. Preparation rituals are a comprehensive set of practices designed to strengthen one's physical, mental, and spiritual defenses before engaging with PAIMON and his associated entities. These rituals encompass a wide range of techniques, including cleansing baths infused with protective herbs, grounding meditations to establish a strong connection with the earth, shielding visualizations to create a psychic barrier against negative energies, and the articulation of clear intentions to define the purpose and boundaries of the interaction. Emergency protocols are pre-planned actions to take during a ritual if things go wrong. For example, if one were to suddenly sense a hostile presence, a pre-planned invocation of a protective deity, such as Archangel Michael, could be activated, or a banishing sigil could be immediately visualized. Understanding and heeding personal limits is also key, including psychological vulnerabilities, emotional triggers, and physical constraints, emphasizing the need to avoid pushing oneself beyond one's capacity. The idea of heeding warning signs, such as persistent nightmares, intrusive thoughts, escalating anxiety, or a disturbing loss of control, indicates a need to halt practices altogether. Simply pushing past discomfort can open a practitioner up to malevolent forces and persistent negative influence. Specific examples of preparation rituals abound in occult literature and practice. Cleansing rituals, often involving the use of salt, water, and sacred smoke, are designed to purify the practitioner's physical and energetic bodies, removing any lingering negative influences. Grounding meditations, rooted in ancient shamanic traditions, help to establish a stable connection with the Earth's energy, promoting a sense of balance and stability. One popular grounding technique involves visualizing roots extending from the base of the spine down into the earth, anchoring the practitioner to the present moment. Shielding visualizations, drawn from Western ceremonial magic, create a protective barrier around the practitioner, deflecting unwanted energies and influences. Some practitioners visualize themselves surrounded by a sphere of white light, while others imagine a mirrored surface that reflects negative energies back to their source. In terms of emergency protocols, if a ritual takes an unexpected turn, practitioners may invoke protective forces, reciting specific banishing formulas or immediately ceasing the ritual. For example, the line of power is a phrase used to immediately stop a ritual by cutting off the current, and has been known to be effective when other methods aren't. Specific invocations can be as simple as calling on a specific deity or spirit for help. Visualizing a protective symbol, such as the pentagram or the hexagram, can also create an energetic barrier, warding off negative influences. However, what about those who recognize when their personal limits have been reached? Consider the case of a modern practitioner named Sarah, who initially sought to invoke PAIMON for assistance in her career. After several successful rituals, she began experiencing persistent nightmares and intrusive thoughts, which she recognized as warning signs that she was pushing herself too far. Sarah made the difficult decision to withdraw from PAIMON-related practices, focusing instead on self-care and mental health. As a result, she experienced a significant improvement in her well-being, stronger relationships with her loved ones, and a greater sense of peace. In contrast, consider the account of John, an ambitious occultist who ignored warning signs and suffered negative consequences. Driven by a thirst for power, John pushed himself to perform increasingly complex and dangerous rituals, despite experiencing escalating anxiety and a loss of control. His recklessness ultimately led to a mental breakdown, strained relationships with his family, and a profound sense of despair. These cases highlight the importance of recognizing personal limits and heeding inner guidance. The psychological factors that may contribute to effective self-protection are profound. Heightened awareness of one's own emotional state, the ability to regulate one's emotions in the face of challenging situations, and a strong sense of self-efficacy all play a crucial role in navigating potentially dangerous encounters with the spirit world. The symbolism of preparation rituals, emergency protocols, and recognizing personal limits can be interpreted as metaphors for establishing healthy boundaries, asserting personal power, and prioritizing well-being. The act of cleansing oneself before a ritual represents the clearing away of negative thoughts and emotions, creating a space for clarity and focus. The invocation of protective forces during a ritual symbolizes the activation of one's inner resources and the assertion of one's right to be safe and respected. The decision to withdraw from practices that are causing harm reflects a commitment to self-care and a recognition of one's own limitations. However, what about the ethical implications? There are significant ethical implications to consider when continuing to engage in practices that could potentially harm oneself or others. Responsible action, non-maleficence, and informed consent are paramount. This not only pertains to your own well-being, but for the well-being of those around you. Returning to the point of PAIMON, the true mastery of his power lies in knowing when to wield it responsibly and when to relinquish it altogether. Responsible disengagement is an equally valid demonstration of power and wisdom. As such, it's a skill to be honed with intention and self-awareness. However, some practitioners may view the act of halting practices as a sign of weakness or a lack of commitment. This view can lead to feelings of shame or failure. Still, facing one's fears and pushing beyond one's comfort zone is essential for spiritual growth, and that avoiding challenges can hinder progress. This may be true, but it is also important to clarify the distinctions between healthy pushing and dangerous overextension. We can't operate at 100% all of the time, and it is important to remember to grant yourself self-compassion, understanding that personal journeys ebb and flow, and that consistent forward momentum is not always possible or necessary. Remember, choosing to halt practices is not a sign of failure, but rather an act of self-respect and a recognition of one's own needs and limitations. Regardless of individual viewpoints or preferred paths, prioritizing safety, ethics, and well-being is a hallmark of a responsible PAIMON explorer. Remember that these commitments should always come first, before any ambition or desire for power. Preparation rituals, emergency protocols, recognizing personal limits, and honoring warning signs play a critical role in creating a safer and more sustainable practice. Whether literal or symbolic, the potential for harm is real. Responsibility comes first. Knowledge, caution, and ethics are the core tenets of safe PAIMON-related practices, empowering you to make informed choices. In doing so, we re-emphasize the theme of self-agency within these practices. While these strategies are critical for safe practice, the ethical considerations surrounding PAIMON and his associated entities are paramount, and perhaps offer the best form of risk mitigation and a foundation for informed practices. Given all of this, what overarching ethical principles should guide one's engagement with this potent force, and what broader lessons can be gleaned from this exploration of the occult? As we move toward the conclusion of this exploration, it's important to note we've only scratched the surface of the relationship between humanity, occult knowledge, entities, risks, and you on this path. As we draw the threads of this exploration together, it's important to acknowledge the complex and often unsettling nature of the information we've encountered, from ancient grimoires and historical accounts to the depths of the human psyche and the ethical considerations of occult practice. This serves not as an ending, but as a transition to deeper awareness. We set out to understand the terrifying rise of PAIMON and the implications of his hereditary demonic influence, uncovering his roots in ancient demonology, exploring the unsettling concept of inherited demonic traits, and examining the psychological and spiritual dimensions of his influence. We have explored the risks, offered actionable strategies for safety, and weighed the responsible path of engaging or disengaging from his influence. This exploration wasn't a descent into darkness, but a journey of greater self-awareness, urging us to transcend impulses, not be consumed by them. But this isn't just about a demon named PAIMON. It speaks to humanity's enduring fascination with power, lineage, and the darker aspects of our nature. What does our fascination with figures like PAIMON reveal about our own inner demons, our fears, and our desires? How do we reconcile the pursuit of knowledge and power with the need for ethical responsibility and personal well-being? As we share with each other, how are we impacting the collective psyche? Ultimately, this investigation underscores the eternal human quest to understand the forces that shape our lives, both seen and unseen, internal and external, and how those forces evolve as we evolve. While the path of occult exploration may be fraught with peril, it also offers the potential for profound self-discovery, empowerment, and a deeper understanding of the mysteries of existence. As you reflect on the knowledge we've uncovered, consider not only the historical and psychological dimensions of PAIMON, but also the ethical responsibilities that come with exploring such potent forces. The shadows may be deep, but the light of knowledge and self-awareness can guide us through the darkest of nights, empowering us to make informed choices and navigate the unseen with wisdom and respect. Just remember, the hereditary influence can be closer than you think, but your choices define your path. If you found this exploration of PAIMON's terrifying rise enlightening, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the hidden and mysterious aspects of our world. Join our community of truth seekers as we continue to unravel the mysteries of the occult, challenge conventional thinking, and explore the boundaries of human understanding. In our next video, we'll be delving into the origins of the Necronomicon, so stay tuned for more forbidden knowledge and thought-provoking insights. If you're seeking knowledge that challenges the mainstream, subscribe and become part of the exploration. May your path be illuminated by wisdom and guided by ethical responsibility. See you in the next revelation, if the shadows allow it.